Hi, everybody, and welcome to FNS Wrestling Podcast, episode 31. I am your host, and with me, as always, is my teenage son, Jackson. Say hello, Jack.
What's up?
Welcome back, everybody. We had a busy day of podcasts this week, right? The most content I think we've ever put out in a week. This is our record. So in case you haven't noticed, we did put out an NXT TakeOver Vengeance Day review earlier this week, and last night I sort of fired off an Impact Wrestling sort of update covering No Surrender as well as the weekly Impact show, just to sort of pare this show down a bit so it doesn't end up being several hours long, because we pretty much do this in one sitting. We take a tiny break in between and then we just keep going. So just experimenting with some new formats and ways of doing things. So as always, we would love some feedback from people, and that would be fnswrestling@gmail.com. Or
if you really want to keep Impact in there.
FNS_wrestling_podcast would be our Instagram. And you can reach out to us either way and let us know if you like what we're doing, if you hate it, if you have any ideas, suggestions, etc.
Yeah, and also I did post it on the account, but if you want, for my retro match review segment, if you want to suggest me a match, then I'm welcoming that. So
yeah, we are going to start that today. We're going to do sort of a retro. Makes me upset that you consider...
No, that's just kind of the name works better.
I know, but that the fact that 2011 is retro, it probably is, but it just makes me feel old.
I know.
You know what I'm saying?
But just the name works better too.
So great news for us in our little area of the world. We are moving out of lockdown next week. Hey!
Woo!
So we're moving to...
And I actually have money, so that's great.
We're moving to the red zone, I think it is, which sounds awful, but it's a step down from a lockdown.
Shouldn't red zone be the lockdown, though?
Red means, I think, gyms, restaurants are open with obviously limited numbers of people allowed inside. I think maybe we can get haircuts and things would be cool.
Yeah, I don't really care about that.
So hopefully progress is being made. A couple of the regions right around us are still in lockdown, but we sort of got removed from it. So hey, optimism. That is nice to see. Maybe things are starting to get better. We've turned a corner, maybe. We'll find out. So that's good news for us anyways. Another beautiful day here. We just walked back from the plaza getting our booster juice.
And I got grilled cheese.
You tried the booster juice?
If you got booster juice near you and they serve grilled cheese, get a grilled cheese because it is great. It is small though, but...
So he ate a grilled cheese on the walk home, and we're just working on our smoothies now. And I don't know what else happened this week. You got your report cards, and both yours and your brother's were pretty awesome. We're very impressed.
You got your birthday?
I did have my birthday last week, right?
Yeah.
Received some cool gifts.
Got one right
the highlight
beside you?
On the wall beside me. My wife got our logo for the podcast made into a beautiful sort of wooden sign that's up on the wall.
Studio sign.
If we ever get the video part running, we'll sort of show people what it looks like.
Maybe I'll try to put that on the Instagram.
Yeah, you could take a picture of that and put it up there. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I don't have much else to chat about. What about you?
Me neither.
So let's transition then directly into our first segment, which is news and rumors. We talked about it on our walk to Booster Juice. It's a really light week for news. Like, I was digging deep to find anything interesting, and there's not much.
Yeah, sometimes I do that, but then, like, if I wait a while, I find I'm able to find something.
This week, I was, like, I checked while you were gaming this morning, and I could really find not much. But I always find the ratings, and I did find those. So week 71 of the Wednesday Night War saw AEW yet again defeat at WWE NXT in viewership and ratings, but just barely this week. So Dynamite drew 747,000 viewers on TNT, which is up 0.8%, so basically the same as last week. While NXT, following their awesome TakeOver Vengeance Day show, go listen to our review of that. It was amazing. Not our review, but the show. Well, maybe a review too, but probably not. So that episode of NXT drew 713,000 viewers on the USA Network. So they were up 27%. So that could be because of the success of that pay-per-view, right? And they really had an amazing sort of moment at the end of the pay-per-view that definitely would make people want to tune in, I think. And we'll talk about that later. In the 18 to 49 key demographic, AEW drew a 0.31 rating this week, which is up 6.9%, while NXT drew a 0.16, which is up a whopping 33%. So the bottom line, as I always like to give you here, is that NXT had huge gains this week in both viewership and the demographic, but they still suffered a narrow defeat overall.
Right, because even if they get a boost, it's AEW wins.
They still do, yeah. It seems to be, right? It's been pretty consistently that way. Do you have anything for us?
So Dominic Mysterio made his debut at SummerSlam of last year. He was supposed to debut with a mask, I think similar to Mysterio, but it was changed to the last minute. Because he had been seen on TV a bunch before his debut match, right? The Eye for an Eye storyline, the storyline with Brock Lesnar, right? So it was scrapped because, like, what's the point, right? So,
Well, I mean, by that token, we've seen Ray's face. He wrestled with no mask for
yeah,
no, I guess not in
WWE wouldn't consider that.
That's probably
Plus,
true.
he probably looks quite different now. Well, the same, but different.
I found a bit of an update on the Sammy Guevara quote-unquote heat from Impact / AEW, whoever's bitter with him. According to a report from Wrestling Inc., the creative issues didn't have anything to do with Guevara wanting an X Division title shot, which was some of the speculation early on in that. It was actually the Impact Wrestling, the booking for Guevara involved him taking part in tag team matches, and he apparently had asked for only singles matches instead, and that this is sort of what was the creative dispute between the two sides, apparently. So
interesting.
Yeah, I don't know what it really means overall, because
Hopefully we can get more details on that, because that is kind of interesting.
But he's still a key focus on Dynamite, so it doesn't look like he's being punished or held back or anything, because he had a pretty good week this week, I think. Mm-hmm. So anything else from you?
Paige has been teasing a WWE return, which
I did see that one.
Similar to Daniel Bryan and Edge, and I think that would actually be really good because she was pretty good, right?
She was quite good, yeah.
And I do really feel bad for her because she got injured right before the first Women's Rumble, and she also missed out on Evolution. Like, she's missed out on a lot of stuff in their quote-unquote Women's Evolution or whatever. So.
And she had to put up with Del Rio in a relationship, which would have been an absolute nightmare for her, I'm sure. Yeah, she was really good and really young when she came, right? Like, I want to say she was she 19 or 20 or something.
She debuted as the NXT Women's Champion, right. And she was the first champion, and then won the Divas title after, I think, day after WrestleMania 29. So she was a double champion.
And she just had a look too, right? She didn't look like a diva. She looked like just an actual wrestler, I guess, and not the normal cookie cutter diva look that they had. Nice. The only other thing I found that was maybe not even newsworthy, but I decided to include it, was that Maria and Mike Kanellis are apparently working with just short-term deals in ROH, and selfishly, I included that because that's kind of good news for me, because I'm not a huge fan of Bennett currently in ROH. I talked about it last week, I think, and if he's on a short-term deal, then I'm thinking maybe he's less likely to get a ton of focus, right? If he's not not signed long-term, that maybe they won't focus on him too much.
Or maybe he'll leave sooner.
Because this OGK or whatever it is that he's doing with Taven, I'm not a fan of.
OGK sounds about as appealing to me as GYV or UE.
I think they think it's really cool, but I'm not a fan. So anyway, that's all I have for news.
Sure they do.
What else do you have? Anything?
So Apollo Crews turned heel finally after a roll-up loss to Shinsuke Nakamura. And then he also attacked Big E when E tried to get him to stop. So Apollo Crews is bland and boring, so this is
he's actually so bland that I'm a little curious to see if he can do.
It's been teased for a bit. Like, I think he interacted with Roman Reigns in 1 week. So I've heard. So
right, but I wonder, like, he just seems so, I don't know. Does he have the energy to be?
Right, because he's like literally been doing the same shtick since he debuted in WWE. And so like, we really have no idea what he's capable of here.
And I think he was sort of. It did not help him. He came up from NXT far
way
too soon.
Too quick. Less than a year of NXT.
Like, he was totally ready in ring-wise, but character-wise, promo-wise, he really needed some work that he didn't get to put in. So hopefully this works for him, because I like him.
Titus Worldwide didn't exactly help.
No.
Yeah. I remember there was when I started watching wrestling, he had that weird feud with Sheamus.
Oh, that's right, he did.
Yeah.
He did.
I remember that was at that house show we went to as well.
Oh, yeah. Good old house shows.
I remember the main event was Dean Ambrose when he was champion, because yes, that happened.
He did.
He beat Rollins and Styles. I remember that.
Nice. Yeah. Anything else in news? I'm tapped out.
So Jon Moxley was named Wrestling Observer Newsletter's 2020 Wrestler of the Year.
That makes sense to me.
And speaking of that, I'm going to briefly cover Pro Wrestling Illustrated's 2020 year-end awards, because that just came out, or at least came around here.
And yes, Jackson still reads magazines, which I love, right? Some actual reading of things.
This
not
is one
on a
of my
computer.
favorite ones with the PWI 500. If you don't know what that is, they basically just rank the top 500 pro wrestlers.
Right.
The way that one usually works is the end of like the 2021, I think was end of 2019, like to mid 2020, and then this is like 2020. So this one's like fan votes, and then the PWI 500 is the writers, I think, opinion. So anyways, the rookie of the year was Dominic Mysterio, which I found to be interesting.
I mean, was it just because there was nobody else that was a rookie? Or
well,
I know he did
I would disagree because the runner-up was Anna Jay, so...
Oh, you did read me all the nominees, and there was nobody good.
And then the other two runner-ups were Joshua Wavra, I don't know who that is, and Abaddon.
Nice.
Sometimes the votes really surprised me, but so most improved was Drew McIntyre. I think that makes complete sense.
Yep, that's fair.
He has really improved, and like sometimes it's like, oh, someone's not good, now they're good, but I think this is just like realized potential more so.
Yeah.
But it's pretty cool. And then your runner-ups are Ricky Starks, which makes sense, I guess. Otis, which kind of confuses me, but I guess like a lot of people like him for some reason.
Yeah.
And Jay Uso, which I think it was later in the year, but I think he did really improve, right? So that one also makes sense. Then we got Inspirational Wrestler of the Year. They kind of surprised me. It was Shad Gaspard, but like it's not surprising because it wasn't inspirational because like he's dead. So like,
but he died heroically, right?
Right. So that does make sense. And then the runner-up is Thunder Rosa, which is...
I don't even know what that story would be. But
me neither.
Good for her.
I guess, yeah. And the second runner-up was the Speaking Out movement, which I don't think that counts as a wrestler, but...
I wouldn't think so. I haven't seen Speaking Out wrestle, but...
And then Drake Maverick, which kind of makes sense, actually.
Sure.
Comeback of the year was MVP, which I think makes sense. He had a great comeback this year.
For sure.
It was awesome. Unexpected. I don't think anyone was clamoring for it, but like... turned out to be really good.
And he's a huge part of Raw every week, right? From what I understand.
And your runner-up's Randy Orton, because he was gone for a while, as we all know.
I guess.
And then Eric Young, which I think makes sense. He did kind of have a rise in prominence after doing nothing.
He did.
And then Asuka, who I guess, maybe made a comeback from mediocrity.
I don't know. My memory is not great, as we know.
Independent Wrestler of the Year, which is a new category.
Your favorite.
Yeah, we got Warhorse one, so that's dumb.
He was okay. I just think like people were going nuts for him, and he was fine on Dynamite.
Your runner-ups are Nick Gage, who I've heard good things about. Same goes for AJ Gray, and then Chris Dickinson. So all guys.
I've seen Chris Dickinson a whole bunch lately.
Feud of the Year, Bayley and Sasha Banks.
Yeah, that's fair. I think too.
I'm surprised there's no like Hangman and the Elite, because that easily would be the best.
I'm sure because you said this is the fan voting, this is going to be very WWE centric.
Yeah, and maybe like it's hard to define what the clear-cut feud is in that Elite storyline.
Just more people watch
I know,
main roster WWE, that's all.
And then your runner-ups are Edge and Orton. That's dumb. Then we got Jericho and Cassidy, which was pretty good, and MJF versus Cody Rhodes, which I think was also kind of 2019, but it was still good. So.
How many awards are there total?
I don't know.
Are we going through all? Don't do the nominees, man. Just give us the winners.
Most popular was Orange Cassidy.
That is probably fair. I know his merch is the top selling, right?
I'm not going to give all the nominees, but he beat out Jon Moxley by 1%. So that's pretty close.
Yep.
Most hated was Seth Rollins. Beat out Roman Reigns by 2%.
But hated for the wrong reasons, maybe, I think, right? Like, I
don't
know.
This year he was an actual heel, so I
know,
think
but
it's different.
I still think a lot of the hatred was because that gimmick sucked. I don't know.
Yeah, probably.
Could be wrong.
Match of the year, I think we all know what it was. Young Bucks and Paige and Omega.
That's what we picked. We agree.
And I do want to talk about the nominees briefly because they were kind of confusing. So the greatest match ever, Edge Norton, and then also Charlotte Flair and Rhea Ripley were better than Walter versus Dragunov.
Strongly disagree.
I would say that's like the runner-up.
I was saying honestly. I don't think Edge and Orton's fair because it wasn't a live match.
Yeah, it was a cin match, but like made to look like a normal match.
So they could redo things and sort of cut things out that didn't look good.
The tag team in the year surprised me, but also made sense. Is the Golden Role Models.
For sure.
They were really good, especially in the second half of the year. I think around WrestleMania and before they were like,
pandemic MVPs for months and months. Yeah,
they definitely got better. And Wrestler of the Year, they did combine it, so it's not like male and female, but it's just Wrestler. is John Moxley. So that's good for
he
him.
deserves that for sure.
Runner-up was Bailey, so that's good for her.
She had a huge year as well. I would
Sasha
agree
Banks
with those.
was in there as well, along with Chris Jericho. So good stuff.
Very nice. Oh, so there weren't that many. I thought you were going to be doing like 20 more awards.
No.
Very cool. All right. Well, I think that's going to wrap up the news, right? You don't have anything else, and I was done before that.
Sir.
So let us move into our first in-depth review, the Wednesday Night War, which is our AEW Dynamite review. So let's do that now.
Yes, sir. So we start with a match that got changed on the fly. It was originally going to be Hangman and Hardy Party versus TH2 and Chaos Project, but now it's just Paige and Hardy versus TH2.
Which I was fine with.
Yeah, because get rid of Chaos Project, but we'll talk about that later.
My first note, I'm such a professional. Making coffee, no notes for a bit.
Oh, yeah, you were.
I was.
I remember you saying I'm not going to have notes for a bit.
With the new Keurig from Valentine's Day that takes a bit longer than I think it should, but anyways.
Yeah, it does take a little longer.
Right?
Like, it starts making the noise, and then it takes like
So that's why I have no notes for a little bit.
Yeah. So TH2 attack Hardy and Hangman, no entrance for them, which kind of sucks because they have a good entrance.
Right.
But, so Hangman counters a double team and suplexes Evans onto Angelico. Hardy tags in, elbow drop by Hardy, elbows and a neckbreaker to Evans by Hardy for a 2 count, and Hangman's back in, back elbow by Hardy, and then the running shooting star by Hangman for 2. Hardy tags in and a double suplex, and Angelico gets a blind tag, helps Evans out of a crucifix, and takes control with corner shots. Evans is back in, and a foot stomp side slam by TH2 for 2. Evans takes out Hangman on the apron, and Angelico tags back in. Evans holds Hardy and gets a cheap shot. 2 count off of that. Evans tags in now. Corner cartwheel elbow by Evans is countered by Hardy, and then he hits a side effect. Hangman gets a hot tag, and Angelico's in as well. Clotheslines and a spine buster by Hangman. He hits a corner clothesline on Angelico, and then runs and hits the springboard clothesline on Evans. Nice sequence there. Fallaway slam to Angelico, and then the slingshot plancha to Evans, which is great as well. And a brain buster on Angelico for 2. Evans gets a tag. A pop-up powerbomb by Hangman on Angelico, and then Hangman catches a dive by Evans and powerbombs him onto Angelico.
It was pretty cool.
Yeah. Hardy tags in as Hangman's about to go for the buckshot, and then Evans counters a twist of fate, and Hangman's knocked off the apron, a neckbreaker, backbreaker, and then a flatliner, and then a Phoenix splash.
Yes.
By TH2
I
for
like
2
that
count.
sequence a lot.
It was a great sequence.
It was.
An assisted 450 by TH2 misses. Hangman hits a double buckshot lariat, and then a twist of fate on Angelico by Matt Hardy for the win.
Yes. And then, do you want to talk about what happens after? Or?
Sure.
Go ahead.
So then Matt Hardy cuts a promo. He gets the crowd to cheer for Hangman and praises him.
Right, he's still under the impression that Hangman has signed his contract at this point.
Hardy says Hangman will make a lot of money, and he will too, because he's taking 30%. Hangman says Hardy should have read the contract closer, and Matt says he sent it right to the lawyers. And then the lawyer mascot, I guess, comes out with the copy of the contract. And the contract was for a match at Revolution, and if Hardy loses to Hangman, Hangman will get 100% of Matt's earnings for the first quarter of 2021. So that'd be like merch stuff and probably his earnings from Private Party, right? So
my only complaint would be, if you're getting him to sign this fake contract for his money, why are you only making it for like 3 months? You know what I mean? If you could sign it for life if you wanted to at this point. So I thought that was a bit strange, and it was clearly to say,
yeah, maybe like he doesn't want to be that
mean. I guess maybe he's just trying to teach Hardy a lesson and doesn't want to go too far. I guess. Right. Yeah, okay.
That might be that.
I'll buy that.
Matt is furious and wants Hangman to offer up his first quarter earnings as well. Hangman agrees, but then the mascot attacks him from behind, and it's Isaiah Cassidy. Matt offers $3,700 to TH2 to attack Hangman, but then Dark Order make the save, and Hardy barely avoids a buckshot lariat, and he flees the ring, and then Hangman and Dark Order kind of have like this awkward kind of stare down kind of deal.
Yes. So one little detail I missed the first time around that I caught sort of later was kind of cool was, I don't know if you noticed. Do you notice Paige said something like, a wise man told him to carry a contract in your pocket or something like that? And that was sort of a shout out to Brody Lee, because he used to remember he had the papers in his pocket that he would throw at people. Yeah. So that was like a subtle reference to that, which I thought was cool, right? So that's the guy that, because at the time I was like, what a weird random thing to say that somebody told you to carry extra papers in your. But then I'm like, oh, that's right, because Brody Lee used to have papers and throw them at
that's a
people.
thing.
So I think that we got a fun match here. We got a reveal sort of the mystery contract and the making of a match all in the opening segment of the show. This was the story of these two winning sort of despite Hardy and not because of him, I think, right? Like, because he was almost holding Paige back at some points.
And also, the Dark Order kind of like still kind of pushing it, but like...
Yeah, they're sort of involved still too, right? Like, they're kind of courting Paige as best they can still as well, right?
Right, but like not being like a jerk about it,
No.
like Hardy, right? So
the only part that bugged me, it didn't really make sense, is why is Paige agreeing to put up his salary as well? You went through all of this trouble to trick and manipulate Matt Hardy just to agree to like you could be the one losing your like that part. There's a bit of a disconnect there for me.
yeah.
But the bottom line is that the cool guy Paige out carnied the carny here, right?
Yeah.
I thought TH2 looked good. There was a couple minor issues, but nothing major. I like this, although I don't really need to see Matt Hardy in singles matches right now, but pretty much anything.
Hangman's pretty good.
I was just going to say, anything in Hangman's orbit is fine with me
right
right
so
now.
maybe Hardy will be fine, and also they tend to deliver a little better on pay-per-view.
I thought overall it was a good start to the show, right? You get a match, you get a storyline furthered, you get a reveal of the contract, so good work to start.
Right. I thought the match was pretty good. The only kind of bad thing was Evans kind of messing up the Phoenix splash, because otherwise that would have been a great sequence.
Oh yeah, he really barely got that.
The aftermath was interesting, and Hangman really out-carnied Hardy, which I thought was pretty cool. Dark Order making the save makes things a little more interesting, and while the match at Revolution will be decent, I'm more in it for the great storytelling being done here. It was really good, a great way to start the show, especially when you compare it to Raw's Miz TV this week.
Yes, which we gave it a chance again.
Yep.
We've done it a few times. We make it through about half an hour of Raw, and then we're like, no,
time.
Let's watch The Office.
I mean, we did get a 6-man tag, which is okay, but like we keep getting Miz TV, goddamn.
We do. They start out every show, it seems.
Yeah. So we get the Inner Circle interview. Ortiz says they've been working for 18 months for this. They're referring to their title shot later tonight. Santana says they'll finally get on top, which they deserve. And then MJF says MJF says accuses, so nope. MJF accuses Sammy of accusing him of recording, even though we literally all saw MJF admit to it, but I just think that's kind of funny. Jericho tells MJF to shut up, and they all saw what MJF did. Jericho says it was mostly Sammy's fault, but also MJF's. Jericho says Sammy Guevara is dead to him, and he made a big mistake turning on the Inner Circle. And Jericho says Power and Powerful will bring Gold back to the Inner Circle, even though then that would mean
they have to wrestle each
other.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
I thought it was good, and I'd like to see Jericho was a little more serious here for a change, and I like that. He even jumped in to sort of shoot down MJF a couple of times, and he came across a little bit more as trying to assert himself as the leader, maybe because he is starting to recognize.
You said, they saw what MJF was doing, right?
Starting to recognize what MJF is doing, so he's now trying to reestablish himself.
Which
as
I think makes
leader.
things even more interesting because they're getting that title shot.
You know, I heard this on a podcast, and I can't remember who. I know I always say that it's true. I try and give credit when I remember. So this is a crazy point, but I think it's completely true. So Santana and Ortiz were booked better in Impact Wrestling than they have been in AEW, and I don't think you can disagree. Because when we went to watch them, right? It was back when they were feuding.
They were LAX and they were feuding with the OGs,
right? And then they got involved with Penta and Phoenix.
Full
at
Metal
some point.
Mayhem.
So there was they were amazing at Impact, and they've sort of been wasted is maybe a bit strong, but pretty close to that in AEW.
Right, they should be doing more, I think, and maybe it's just buying the time. Maybe
that division's rammed full of
the tag division's
teams.
been mostly occupied by that big elite storyline. So maybe it's just been timing. Maybe I think if we just give it time, we can trust AEW. I think they'll get a chance eventually. But I agree, at least where things stand right now.
Weird to say,
agree.
Right? Impact did it better than AEW.
Right.
Pardon.
Right.
Yeah.
So we get a women's tournament update. So Yuka Sakazaki, Emi Sakura, Ryo Mizunami, and Aja Kong have all advanced in the Japan matches that were on Monday, which we missed.
Yeah, we got to catch up on those maybe at some point.
More matches from America and Japan this Monday.
Yep.
Speaking of the tournament, we get Serena D versus Riho
in an eliminator first round match.
That is correct.
Yeah.
So you get your standard holds and counters.
Sure
and
did.
then a drop kick by Riho after she gets out of a pin, does like that bridge kind of thingy.
Yeah, she bridged out of it, yep.
Cartwheel, and then a really bad, just like running crossbody for 2 by Riho. Like, I feel like that's a move anyone could catch. It's not like where you have like Killian Dane or Butcher or running at you and like then doing a crossbody.
Well, yeah, she doesn't even weigh 100 pounds.
Right, so like,
as JR points out 6 or 7 times a match.
It's a 300 pounder. She's a 98 pounder. Like, honestly. So Deeb catches a 619 attempt. I'm just gonna write that rather than Tiger Fang kick because it's easier to write.
Well, and I bet you most of our listeners know 619.
True. Decapitator by Deeb afterwards. Rest hold being applied by Deeb post commercial break. Deeb is backed in the corner but hangs on to the hold. She gets backed into the corner again and has to break the hold. And a Snapdragon suplex by Rio, which looked decent, but no Kenny Omega.
No, there was just not the speed, right? It was just a slow motion version
of it. But like, honestly, that looks fine sometimes. But like, I think when you say Snapdragon suplex, we all know what to expect.
Well, and you're comparing it to the Master, right? So that's sometimes
right.
Not fair.
I think you could have considered this a good Dragon suplex. Snapdragon. I don't know, because there is a difference,
that
right? You really
actually
got
is exactly the right point. That
right?
was a dragon suplex.
Yeah,
you're right.
Good dragon suplex, Snapdragon.
Not so much.
Forearms by Riho and a corner uppercut by Deeb. Head scissors takedown by Riho and a corner high knee for a 2 count. Deeb blocks a Northern Lights suplex, but her knee gives out on a suplex attempt, and then a drop kick by Riho to follow. Crossbody by Riho, but Deeb rolls through for a pin, and then Riho counters a figure 4. It was not a pin. She tried to get a figure 4. That's my bad.
That's all right. We'll forgive.
Swinging neckbreaker for 2 by Deeb. I think that's like the Elias thing or whatever Britt Baker's doing. I think it was. Forearms by Riho, and she gets a 619. And a diving foot stomp to the back by Riho, which looked decent.
Really good.
Diving cross body by Riho for 2. Riho tries to re-enter the ring after an outside brawl. Is caught with a dragon screw by Deeb, and then a Brocklock. Riho gets out. Northern Lights suplex by Riho, double foot stomp by Riho for a near fall from top rope. That was like the best move.
That was the big, that looked really good.
Like, yeah, we don't give enough credit. Well, like we say,
I'm
her
about
moves
to
don't good, but like, this move was actually good. So,
it was.
Deeb ducks a knee and rolls Riho through, but Riho counters the detox. Pins are countered by both until Riho eventually gets a win and she advances.
I thought this was a really good match, and I have very little interest in Riho, and we give her a bit of a hard time on here. I'm not, like, it's just our opinion. We haven't loved her, right? I have to admit, this was really entertaining. I've come around on Deeb as well, for sure. She can really wrestle, man. Honestly, Riho looked good here. The crowd was a little bit too much into her, in my opinion. It felt disingenuous almost at times. Like, if this were a WWE match, I'd be sure that the wrestlers in the crowd were being told to be overhyped for this. But the match was good. I don't know if I love Riho winning here, just because she's kind of been gone and Deeb's been doing really well and is like a champion, right? And Riho just kind of shows up and beats her clean in her first match back. So I'm not sure if I love the result, but I thought this was my favorite Riho match for sure, and I actually really liked it. What about you?
Yeah, it was good and better than expected. Riho looked actually fine. She'll be facing Thunder Rosa next, so that could be good. Deeb didn't really need the win. This was Rio's kind of big return, so the outcome was predictable. Even though most of her offense looked kind of like whatever and sometimes questionable, the stomp and dragon suplex were pretty good for me. So, better than what we've seen previously of Riho.
Yep, I agree. I liked it.
From strength to not strength, Jade Cargill and Shaq vignette, literally just basketball and stuff, nothing important, really.
Again, like just a painless way, I guess, to focus on her strengths, her look and her athleticism. Nothing about her wrestling, nothing about her speaking ability, nothing else other than just look at her play sports, I guess.
So I did say something to you about this, and I'll talk about that in a sec, but I still can't believe or understand why we are getting this match. Neither of these people should be in a wrestling ring or even on wrestling television for that matter. One is a model bodybuilder and the other is a retired basketball player. Not just a basketball player, a retired basketball player. Neither of them have anything to do with wrestling, nor should they.
That's the point.
And on top of this, their connection still has not been explained, and that's why I said to you, like, how were they connected?
That is
we
true.
have no idea.
Nope, we don't.
They literally just, it's like Jay Carlo said, you think you're Giant Killer? Well, I have Shaq, and it's like, okay, they're connected now, like.
But you and I are giant wrestling nerds. We're gonna watch this show no matter what. They're trying to get eyes, right? They're trying to draw attention by using Shaq.
They should not use Shaq.
So I have no interest in this at all, but at least this was another really short and inoffensive little segment, right? That's not eating up a lot of time on my favorite wrestling show.
Yep.
And it looks like Shaq is a genius because he's found a way to get paid and he almost has to do nothing, right? Like
I'm sure you'll do nothing in the match, too.
I can't imagine he's going to do a lot. So anyways, we've talked about it for longer than it actually lasted, so let's move on.
Ha, that's funny. So from weakness to weakness, we get Luther versus Orange Cassidy. So instead of getting Luther in a big 8-man tag match where he can hide his weaknesses, we get him in a one-on-one match.
I know, I was so excited that I thought like they'd been moved out of that match and off the show, and then
we get...
Sorry, Luther, we're not fans.
Yeah, Luther attacks Chuck, and then Serpentico attacks Chuck with the suicide dive. Pump kick and a powerbomb by Luther for 2. Luther rips off Cassidy's shirt as a symbol that he is a heel.
Yes.
Cassidy counters an apron pile driver into a powerbomb onto the floor, which looked kind of cool. An Omega driver by Chuck to Serpentico in the ring. They called it something
awful
weird.
waffle, and it looked really cool.
Yeah, I actually have that as one of my custom guys finishers, and the only reason I called it the Omega driver is because that's what it says in 2K. So
it's the awful waffle.
That's just okay.
That's Chuck. That's very Chuck Taylor.
Yeah. And then he rolls him out, but it is a cool move. It's like, so he comes up from behind, right? And then so, like, you know how he would get his arm under for a roll-up? Like, he uses that, he picks him up, kind of turns him around into a pile driver. Right. It looks really cool.
It does.
And then an orange punch for the win. And Orange Cassidy wins, and I wrote, cue the run-in, and then there's surprisingly nothing.
That's funny, because I said, why does this match exist exactly?
Right, and then I wrote, what was the point of this match? Because when Chaos Project was removed from that tag match, I thought they'd be off the card, but then we discovered we'd get Luther in a singles match, and I would almost rather there be a run-in, because then there would be at least some point to this, right?
100%.
Right?
I was bracing for a Miro Sabian appearance.
At least that would make it, like, have a point, but like nothing offensive here, but like what was the point?
Completely unnecessary.
Yeah, like
I don't know. I didn't get it either.
As much as we complain about like the repeated run-ins after, at least it would have like given some significance to this.
That's
right?
what it was. They listened to the podcast, obviously, and were like, let's fool these guys. They say we have too many run-ins lately.
Yeah.
Boom. They're gonna expect it and not get it.
Probably. So,
I don't get the point of this match being here, but anyways, again, it was short. We don't need to talk about it for too long, I guess.
I do enjoy Luther jobbing out though.
I guess
that is kind of funny. So we get a recap of the TNT title match and Darby being towed in a body bag last week.
It's just supposed to horrify you, not make you laugh, okay? You insensitive man.
He's getting towed in a bag. Like,
and it's funny because, like,
of all the things you could do,
something I was listening to was basically like, would he even care? This is something Darby Allin would go and do on in the weekend. You know what I mean?
Other than that, it's his enemies towing him. Would he care?
This is something that him and his buddies would probably do. So I don't know.
Other than the fact that it's his enemies and he doesn't know where he's being taken,
I guess.
Wouldn't he at least kind of enjoy himself?
Kidnapping.
Also, it's just like you could have kidnapped him and stuffed him in the back of your car or whatever, but like you had to tow him in a body bag. I just find that kind of amusing.
Yep.
So we're told Team Taz have been fined for their actions, which I think was the attacking the workers, but maybe also towing a human being in a body bag.
And this is where we sort of find out that there's a bunch of people missing tonight because of weather issues, right? They do this where? In Tennessee or something? They're not in Florida, so obviously there's been crazy weather in regions of the states that don't normally get crazy weather, so that has affected a bunch of people getting here. So that's why we're missing some of Team Taz, right? No Starks, no Hobbs.
And Hobbs.
And then I think there's a few other people missing this week because of the weather challenges.
Taz taunts Sting and tells him to call out Team Taz even though they're already out.
Mm-hmm.
And then Sting's music plays and here comes the geezer. Taz says Sting stepping in the ring is the worst thing he's ever done. Taz says Sting needs the bat because otherwise he's done. Sting drops the bat and then Tax hook chokes Sting with the bat and then Cage powerbomb Sting.
What the heck?
Yeah, Sting still sucks. Let's get that clear. And this segment was pointless, but I will give him props for taking a powerbomb. After the incident in his last match, I was not expecting this. So I still hate him. I still think he should be gone, but at least he took a That's
Yeah,
surprising.
I didn't hate this because my fear was when he ditched the bat, I was honestly like, oh no, he's still gonna fight them all off without the bat. So at least he didn't. Dude,
Sorry,
easy with the booster juice.
I'm done now.
I honestly thought that he was gonna get the better of Cage, so I'm fine with this. He should get killed by Cage.
That was honestly like
I just hope he's
I
okay
agree.
because he shouldn't like.
They made the right move, right?
Talk about not easing into it, right? Like, oh, so you haven't had any contact yet? Guess what? You're taking a power bomb
like
from
from
Cage.
a big muscly man. Like,
So
honestly,
it made me a little bit uncomfortable. I'm not gonna lie,
yeah,
but I guess he's okay.
I think they made the right move here. Made Cage look dominant against an old man who shouldn't be here in the first place. But honestly, like, if he had to be here, props for him to taking a bump. Like, I didn't expect that.
And
so.
a pretty big one at that. So yeah.
Yeah, taking a powerbomb from a big man after you were like almost brutally injured in a match. So yeah.
Yep.
So we get Eddie Kingston promo from weakness to strength now. Kingston says he requested the match because he has 3 demons he needs to get rid of, and I did really enjoy this.
Yeah, he reminds us of his issues with everybody, which
and it
I love.
makes this match make sense.
So me as a non-remembering guy loves that.
He says Archer has been bugging him since the Casino Battle Royal, and Kingston needs to beat Archer to get rid of him, kind of. And then this one was the funniest in my opinion. He says he never wanted Phoenix in the family, he only wanted Penta, but then Phoenix got Penta to turn on him, and Kingston says he didn't forget that, and he's gonna make Phoenix pay. And then he says he hasn't been able to get rid of Mox with anything else, so he needs to beat Mox to put it behind him. And I just like this, giving context to a match that we didn't really have much context for, other than that they've had, like, a lot of them have had issues with each other.
Yeah, short
right?
but strong promo. It's summarizing and reminding me of the issues with these guys. He wasn't quite as intense as he is sometimes, but I think that's not a bad thing, right? Sometimes you just need to dial it back so that you can save it for really important storylines and things where he really gets super intense. So again, I don't know if this guy's capable of a bad promo, so this was another good one.
No, this is good. And like, he's even just like this random tag match that's on the same night, he's able to at least, even if it's just something small, he's still building to it, right?
Yep.
Like, so
credit to this. He is a much bigger talent than I thought he was, to be honest.
I remember seeing him in Impact. He was just like king. He was managing the OGs, right? And he was cool. He was great on the mic. He did
cut a sweet promo from the balcony. Remember when we were there?
That was awesome.
That was
cool.
And
then I remember seeing him like NWA, because when you were watching that, and I was surprised that he was a wrestler.
Yeah.
And then I saw him here, and he was cool. That note he came out to Cody, and he's just really like improved from there.
He's great.
Yeah. I think he could make a case for most hated wrestler at some point. If he
wants to be, he will be, because he can make you feel whatever he wants you to feel, right?
I bet he could even make you feel sorry for him if he really wanted.
I'm sure he could.
Yeah. So next we get Kenny Omega interview, but then it's like he doesn't really get an interview, but like
Kenny in kindergarten.
So Kenny's reading the Young Bucks book to children. One kid asks if there are any pictures. And then another kid asks if they're in love, and then Kenny's kind of like, well, they're brothers, so like, Sora, which I thought was kind of funny. And then Kenny reads a passage about his and Jericho's Wrestle Kingdom match.
Right, of course, of all the things in the Young Bucks book, he finds a passage where it's about him boosting the ratings in Japan with Jericho, which was funny.
And he explains what drastically means, because like, it was in the passage.
Right.
And he says he has to go. He asked the marketer how he did it, and she tells him about the popularity going up.
Yeah, I think he has like a PR rep now or something. Yeah.
It's a publicity stunt. And then Kenny and Don said they can't play, but they have to go. And then he says Nakazawa can, and then Nakazawa's like, I can play with you. And then the kids say they hate Nakazawa.
Right.
And then they beat him with toys, which I don't know, just like, it was kind of funny, but I kind of felt bad, because like, poor Nakazawa, he's probably getting treated bad by Kenny, and then now he's like getting beat down by a bunch of little children.
So I wasn't sure how I felt about this until it
it was really weird.
Until it became clear that it was a scam to appeal to certain demographics and raise his rating and stuff, right? The fact that it was all just a publicity stunt, and he read for like 20 seconds, right? And then he's just done and out of there. So then I started to really like it, and the part with Nakazawa at the end was funny. Yeah, I thought this was a cool segment. It started out, I was just thinking, oh, this is kind of weird, and then it's like, he's literally just using young children to improve his own profile, which is an awesome heel thing to do. It's like, okay, you've got enough publicity, you got the photos, and I'm out of here, sort of thing. So I thought it was cool.
Right, it just made the thing better, and it adds to Omega's character.
Yep, I liked it.
Next we get what was the expected main event in my opinion, but it is not. The Young Bucks were Proud and Powerful for the AEW Tag Team
And it seems like Proud and Powerful have ditched that name, eh? They are not referred by that ever anymore.
I know, it's weird.
I don't know.
I still will call them that. They didn't even use their theme. They used the Inner Circle theme, which it's not a bad theme, but their theme's better.
It's easy in my notes because Santana and Ortiz and Proud and Powerful, it's not much difference. So in terms of keystrokes.
Buck's parents are at ringside. So
they are.
They're there. So Nick and Santana start. We got your usual holds and counters, and Ortiz tags in. Matt catches Nick from a rope rebound. And Matt tags in. Hip tosses to Proud and Powerful by Matt. Arm drag counter and a drop kick by Matt. Santana tags in now and a double team, and then Nick tags in. Standing splash and moonsault combo to Santana, and then a double dropkick to Ortiz by the Bucks. Ortiz then tags in a little later, and an assisted suplex backbreaker by Proud and Powerful, and then MJF gets ejected, followed by the rest of the Inner Circle.
Right, and the commentary team, I made a note, they went out of their way to point out MJF when that happened. They say he screwed up again, so it's almost like they felt the need to draw our attention to this for some reason, possibly.
Right. And like I think the Proud and Powerful were like kind of like, what the hell are you doing? As like he's getting ejected. Ortiz chokes Nick with his feet as ref is distracted by the ejections. Santana and Nick Jackson are legal after the commercial break. Chopped by Santana, and then Ortiz tags in. Body slam, but the elbow misses, and Nick takes out Santana and super kicks Ortiz. And Matt Jackson gets the hot tag, gets a flurry, twisting stunner by Matt on Santana for 2 after taking out Ortiz, which looked awesome. Nick tags in shortly after. Nick pulls Santana off of the turnbuckles into a sit-out powerbomb by Matt, which was really cool.
It was.
For a 2 count. Avalanche Falcon Arrow by Santana a little after. For 2, after Ortiz took out Matt with a wheelbarrow facebuster. That looked awesome.
I love the Avalanche Falcon Arrow too.
It's just like something so rare that might do some damage to your spine a bit, right?
Absolutely.
So, a double team flatliner into a submission known as the Koji Clutch by Ortiz after he tags in. Matt breaks it with an elbow drop from the top rope. Santana now legal. Matt takes out Ortiz to prevent a double superplex, and then a doomsday device by the Bucks. Matt tags in, and they hit that Domagiri buckle bomb, which always looks really cool. But Ortiz breaks the pin. Nick tags in. Santana ducks a BTA trigger, which I don't think I've ever seen that happen before. So that was kind of cool.
Right.
It's just kind of funny they kind of hit their knees together.
Yeah, nobody really avoids that one too often.
Right. And I realized it's kind of similar to the golden trigger.
Yeah, it is.
It's just a different way of doing it.
It is.
A roll into a double cutter by Santana after Ortiz tags in. And then the street sweeper for a near fall as Matt breaks the pin. Love that move. Literally just a blockbuster power bomb, but
that has to be broken up. I don't want people kicking out of that.
It's a sit-up power bomb too. It just looks awesome.
Yeah, it's great.
The height you'd have to get, it's just like a perfect move too.
And I like the street sweeper name for some reason too.
Just,
I don't even know why.
It applies to their characters. I feel like it just works, and it is a sweet name. So.
Yeah, I like it.
Just really happy we got to see that move. Matt sent into the barricade, a double team power bomb to Matt into the crowd, right?
Yeah.
And then a small package pin as I think it was Santana. Maybe?
Ortiz gets rolled up by
Ortiz,
Nick as he comes back in.
Yeah, so the Young Bucks are able to retain, but the Inner Circle attack afterwards.
Of course.
Right. And it was kind of funny as Kenny and the Good Brothers are just watching backstage. Brandon Cutler attempts to help to no avail. And then the Good Brothers sent out by Callis later as he gets Omega to stay back, but they clearly took their sweet time.
They're in no hurry to get down there.
Which is kind of funny. And then Jericho taunts the Bucks' parents because obviously he can't not do that.
Right.
And
that's what they're there for.
And then the dad shoves him.
Yep.
And that's like, ooh, he shoved Jericho.
Yep. And then we end the Bucks are in submission holds, right? From MJF and Jericho at the end.
Right. Salt of the Earth and
the Walls of Jericho, was it?
Walls of Jericho, yeah. Lion Tamer, Walls of Jericho. Whatever.
I thought this was a really good match. I found the end a little bit anticlimactic, right? With the sneak in roll up finish. a nice reminder of how good Santana and Ortiz are, because again, I do feel like they're underused. This tag division's just so deep they can't possibly get enough attention, but I thought this was another really fun match, and this show's been super solid so far for me.
Mm-hmm. I really like the match. It was good. I don't think they're gonna have a bad match. I think a pay-per-view rematch at some time would be even better, and I would hope we get it soon, but maybe not, because they do seem to have some plans right now. I'm really glad I got to see the Street Super, because it sounds cool and looks cooler. The finish was sudden, which I kind of like, because it's like, yes, it was anticlimactic, but it was also kind of different too, right?
Yeah, I wasn't a huge fan.
Yeah, it was like a mixed bag for me, I guess. And I like how it's kind of slowly setting up the Good Brothers.
Oh yeah, and not sending Omega at all.
Right, and still isolating Kenny.
Yep.
So I thought that was kind of funny.
Me too.
So we get a Brandy Rhodes promo, and all I wrote was gender reveal on Dynamite right now. And then we get the gender reveal, and so Cody enters. He does his theme.
His
and
full entrance.
Right.
Oh my god.
And then all it is the Tron.
Calm.
All it is, the Tron says it's a girl. And I just wrote, oh my god, what a waste of time. Even though it was like 10 seconds. This should not be on Dynamite or even Dark for that matter. This is a social media thing. Holy crap.
This is self-indulgent nonsense.
And it's like, it wasn't even that long either.
And it is basically a narcissistic move, right? That
right,
you assume that enough people care
to put
about
on
the
national
gender
television.
of your child that you need to put it on a national television show and take up time to do this. I know it was only a few seconds.
But still,
I found
it shouldn't
this
be there,
offensive.
period.
And Cody and Brandy,
oh my god,
come on. Come on.
It's just like...
Just self-indulgent. They want to do it, so they're going to do it.
Right.
And
it's
they
like,
think people care because they're narcissists.
I mean...
And that everyone's thinking about them at all times, and we're not.
Yeah, it's like, WWE Triple H is whatever, like, he would, like, stay on top, but, like, and I thought they would be doing that differently, and, like, to their credit, Bucks and Omega have, but, like, and Cody's actually done a decent job of that, but I think this is the one spot where he's kind of, like, the power, just taking advantage of that, because this is really unnecessary. Even like a less than half a minute segment, I don't need this.
And the fact that he basically did his full entrance was just like the cherry on top of this
just to go
Sunday.
back out, right? Like,
right.
It was just ridiculous.
Yep. Spent too much time on it again.
Cody. I don't like you.
It wasn't good. No one cares. Well, I mean, congratulations and all that, but not necessary on this show at all.
Don't play on television, and also turn heel. And speaking of Cody,
he is a heel, man. I don't care what anybody says.
Yeah,
he's a heel.
Speaking of Cody, he's on commentary for FTR versus Matt and Mike Sydal. I just wrote why. Why is he staying here, and what does he have to do with this match at all? I'll tell you, nothing. Literally nothing. So Mike Sydal and Cash Wheeler.
Who I've never heard of.
Yeah. STO takedown. Dax tags in, chops, and then we get Face of the Revolution ladder match revealed, and it's at Revolution.
Oh, and the new Sydal brings a yoga mat to the ring with him, which felt super indie to me. Like that is a mega indie move to do. Not that I really care. It just seemed that way.
I usually call Matt Sydal just Sydal, so now I can't do that. So damn you, Mike Sydal.
I have new Sydal first until I figure out his name.
Mike. Kicks by Matt Sydal, and Mike tags in, because I guess Matt was legal. I must have missed that. Corner chops and forearms by Mike on Dax, but Cash is legal. And then he just runs up and hits an avalanche German suplex, lightning quick, which
it looks really good. He
awesome.
Just the burst out of him. Certain matches, right? He doesn't do it all the time. You're just like, man, he is crazy fast and just sudden, right, in his movements.
Right, when it's necessary.
Yeah.
Which I like, because it that's kind of what their style is, right?
Yep.
It just kind of adds to that.
I agree.
So Dax is down legal post-commercial break. Matt Sydal tags in. Assisted Hurricane Rana by the Sydals. Lightning Spiral by Matt. A moonsault to the outside by Matt, and then rolls him in for a 2 count. Chops by Matt. Dax kicks out of a roll-up, and Madison into an uppercut cheap shot by Cash.
A huge uppercut out of nowhere.
Chops to FTR after a double team counter. DDT by Matt is countered into a combo by FTR for 2. Roll up by Matt for 2. Mike tags in. A double Meteora by Matt looks kind of cool. And then a splash question mark by Mike. But Cash gets a rope break.
It's the Sydal curse, right? You pointed out in their debuts.
You gotta mess up a dive in your debut. They're
As
truly
a Sydal,
brothers.
family tradition.
Matt gets crotched, blind tag by Dax, smash contraption for the win.
Yes.
And then they. I'll cover the post.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot about it. Go
They
ahead.
try to cut off Mike's hair, but the lights go out, and then you get to see this kind of creepy mask on the screen.
Yeah.
And Jurassic Express are back, and Jungle Boy taps out Dax for the snare trap as Luchasaurus hits a chokeslam, and Marco Stunt's just kind of standing there, just kind of like, yeah, get him, and like, which is I thought was kind of funny, just because he's Marco Stunt.
FTR are awesome. As I said, Cash can be so sudden at times. He caught me by surprise a few times in this match again. The Seidels are fine. I think there's absolutely no reason to build more tag teams in this company. This is basically another TH2, and TH2 has trouble getting on the show. So I'm not sure why we need another tag team. No offense, I see no reason for either Seidel in this company. It was a fun match, though. The result was never in doubt, and I think it was just a vehicle to get us to the post-match stuff, right? Which, as we know right now, there has to be a run-in after every single match in AEW, and there has to be some sort of
this one, at least, it's
interaction.
like they're kind of returning.
No, this one didn't bother me. It's just it seems to be a constant thing.
Yeah.
So this match served its purpose. It wasn't too long. FTR's awesome, especially Cash looked good. So this was I liked it.
And then we get some. Actually, sorry, I forgot to give my opinion.
You did.
The match was alright, and Mike Seidel, like we said, truly Matt Seidel's brother. They both botched dive in their debut. Match was fine, but FTR should have been a little more dominant, in my opinion. But I guess you did want to. Matt Seidel's not a total jobber, and I guess they did want to showcase Mike a bit.
And
so.
FTR tends to do that as well, right?
Yeah.
And I mean AEW in general, we always say tend to do that.
So we're gonna get Hangman Page versus Isaiah Cassidy next week, which could be decent. In the past, Hangman's had some decent matches with tag team people like Kazarian and wasn't it Mark Quinn? Or no, it was John Silver, right?
Yeah, I kind of am of the opinion right now that Hangman can do no wrong at this point.
He hasn't. I can't think of anything that that he's done that I didn't like.
Right.
Ricky Starks and Brian Cage versus Varsity Blondes next week. There's only one way that can go.
I'm actually not hating the Varsity Blondes, so I guess it's just like if they get them on TV enough, I start to just accept them as a
I guess
team on
but
TV.
They're Dynamite jobbers.
But we need fodder, right, for some of the better tag teams. So they serve a purpose until they're ready.
Speaking of serving a purpose, not Jay Kruger versus Brandon Cutler next week because they had a heated altercation earlier.
Yikes!
That's brutal.
That I'm not looking forward to.
Speaking of brutal, Shaquille O'Neal and Jade Cargill versus Cody and Red Velvet.
So can you imagine if it's Red Velvet, whatever in the ring, Shaq can't be good, Cargill can't be good, and if Cody's slightly injured, like what is this match gonna look like?
Right, because Velvet is decent, but she's kind of like
she's gonna have to carry
she's like
it,
enhancement
basically.
talent. Right, and I don't
crazy.
think that's possible because
No.
she's enhancement talent at best right now. And like I'm not saying she's bad, but like she can't carry a match. Cody's slightly injured, like you said. Jade Cargill is not
Jade
a wrestler. Yeah, she's Jade Cargill. And Shaq is kind of old.
Although to be fair,
maybe
Jade Cargill's gonna come out and blow us away, right? I don't know. I mean,
well, yeah, she definitely blew me away in her debut.
So we'll see.
FTR and Tully Blanchard versus Jurassic Express in 2 weeks. Tully Blanchard is wrestling.
I don't imagine he'll play a major role.
No, I think it's just more to like get a 6-man tag.
I would think so.
I would have rather them just like find another heel, but like whatever.
Yeah.
Face of the Revolution, ladder match of Revolution. We already got my boy Penta, so he's coming back. So let's go, Penta Squad. Cody Rhodes. Woo.
It's fine in matches. He's good.
And Scorpio Sky.
He's awesome. He just has
good,
zero profile in this company,
since
right?
that feud with Sean Spears,
Yeah,
who has
but he's
also
good.
gone missing. And 3 more to come, so we'll get a pretty good 6-man ladder match.
Yeah, that should be fun.
Love a good ladder match.
Me too.
More Revolution matches confirmed, like Hangman vs. Hardy, the Street Fight, and the tag title match, which is Bucks and
Inner Circle?
Jericho and MJF. Yes,
Right.
Inner Circle. So we get John Moxley promo. Mox says he's probably the only one who cares about Kingston, and he'll beat that into him. And then he says he'll beat the hell out of Kenta and JPW Strong. Is that a show or is that a pay-per-view?
So that's it's funny you say that because I just watched the most recent episode. It's like the American.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then he says he'll settle the score with Kenny eventually, and then time is near to pull the trigger.
Right. So I might have to go watch that match then because it's on.
Yeah.
I can find it.
Has it
There are some like I watched
it happened.
I watched it this week. No, but I watched New Japan, whatever it's called, the American one, and there were some really, really green, like not very good talents on there. It's very much just like a developmental almost, I think, largely. So there was some not great stuff on there, but that match will obviously be good.
Yeah, I will probably just watch this match and nothing else on there, but whatever.
I just thought this was another like standard solid Mox promo.
I don't think he can do a bad promo either.
He uses the same formula every time, but he does it
works.
well.
To his credit, yeah, it works.
Yep.
Eddie Kingston, Butcher, and Blade versus John Moxley, Lance
Main
Archer,
event?
and Rey Fenix. Main event time, yes sir.
And a super mask for Phoenix.
Yes. And then it turns out just to be an entrance mask.
Yep.
Which was kind of disappointing because it was like a really cool mask. It
was cool.
Almost Penta-like, no face paint, but like it was like a full mask and it had like the side flaps. It looked really cool. It didn't even look like Phoenix at all.
Right.
I'd almost don't want him to have a new mask because like just he's Phoenix, right? So
he is
and
Phoenix.
That he looks like what he looks like, so I don't think you should change it. He looks cool.
Yep.
Anyway,
he's got a signature look.
Yeah. A brawl to start, and it spills out of the ring quickly. Butcher tags in, so we're starting the actual match. Double team slam for 2 by Butcher and Blade. On who? I don't know, because I forgot to write that down.
Don't worry.
Corner chop by Butcher, and Kingston tags in. Strikes, and Blade tags in. Scoop slam, and now Archer tags in, so it's either Mox or Phoenix. I'm pretty sure it's Phoenix. Archer takes out Butcher and Kingston, and a choke toss into the corner by Blade. Or to Blade, sorry.
Yep.
Which was really cool. Belly to belly suplex by Archer, and then he does the old school rope walk. Not the moonsault, just like old school, like the shot to the back.
Yeah.
Which is lame because he does the moonsault.
Yeah, normally he does a moonsault, so when he does this, it's a little bit like, what are you doing? Where's the moonsault?
Right. And this is as Phoenix is taking out Butcher with the dive. Eddie Kingston gets a cheap shot post-commercial break. Corner chops by Blade. Kingston tags in and hits headbutts. Butcher tags in. Kingston and Butcher counter a chokeslam by Archer as Mox takes out Blade. Phoenix gets a hot tag, heel kick to Butcher, kick and springboard arm drag. Dive to Kingston and cutter to Butcher. Frog splash for 2. Exploder suplex by Kingston. Crossbody to Archer by Butcher. That running crossbody I was talking about earlier when we mentioned Rehos. Mox hits a German suplex on Butcher. He does have a pretty nice German suplex. Pump kick to Mox by Blade, but Phoenix takes him out. Mox and Kingston both tag in. They have a brief strike exchange. Kingston attempts a spinning backfist, but Mox ducks, and Phoenix hits a super kick, which looked really cool.
Yeah.
A nice sequence there. A bulldog choke is broken up by Butcher and Blade. Dive offense by Archer and Phoenix to Butcher and Blade. Lariat by Mox, and a paradigm shift for the win.
A really big paradigm shift
yes.
that Kingston looked like he landed straight down on his head.
Yes.
It looked really good.
And then post-match aftermath, Good Brothers attack Mox as Omega's walking out. Cut to promo. He says Mox is pathetic if he isn't in a junkyard, which is kind of funny. Omega says Mox can have a rematch at Revolution, but Omega can name the match. And then he says it'll be an exploding barbed wire death match, and that just sounds like a
I was just going to say that's a little homage to New Japan, or Japan in general,
Japan.
I think.
Yeah, because remember that video I
Yes.
sent you of like the insane...
Yep.
I think there was one like this, actually.
Yep.
I think this was one.
And I know Funk and...
Yeah, I saw Terry Funk praise this.
And Cactus Jack, I think, have been in some of these matches.
I saw Funk praising this.
It should be pretty crazy, I'm sure.
Honestly... Based on like some of the crazy matches, I'm not sure if I want to see this. Like I'm intrigued, but like this might be crazy. So.
Yeah, it could be. I'm sure it'll be fun.
I'm intrigued, but I also don't know if I want to see it. Then we get a couple V triggers, and that's it.
Yeah, Mox is dead from V trigger, basically.
We're like the one-winged angel, but that's alright.
I'm probably gonna have an unpopular opinion. I didn't love this match. I think I liked parts of it.
I thought it was all right, but I think I didn't like it as much as well because it's just like they're so good at multi-man tags. They've almost spoiled us too much. You know what I mean?
And I think like Phoenix's hot tag was amazing. I think that was part of my issue. So there's just so much going on. There was nothing really sustained for too long. For me, there was too much Archer in the first half of it and not enough Phoenix, right? Like I'm just not sure how I feel about Archer, and he was in the ring for a good chunk of this near the beginning. There were definitely some cool spots, but on the whole, I was a little bit disappointed. And that's sort of 2 weeks in a row where I found the main event a little bit underwhelming. The Omega choice of a death match seems somewhat inconsistent with his current character as well, because shouldn't he be trying to weasel out of one of these matches?
What shouldn't he pick like an Iron Man match?
Or it should be Mox trying to get this match and Omega trying to weasel out of it, I thought would make more sense.
Or maybe there's some sort of strategy here that we don't know about, though.
It could be. I guess kind of the idea is that he wants to get rid of Moxley once and for all, right? And a death match is what it might take to get. So, and I imagine
maybe then if he wins, you could say he beat Mox at his own game. Maybe that's something like that.
I would be shocked as well if this is not the write-off of Moxley for a while. So I'm sure he's taken some time for the birth of his child, / if he has to do anything for New Japan, right? So I have a feeling he's going to lose his belt, he's going to lose this match, and he's going to be sort of taking some time off, which is fine. He deserves it, man. He's worked his butt off for the last year.
Yeah, the last year
and then he can come back refreshed and we'll be excited to see him. So, I mean, I can't see it going any other way than that, but I think the match will be crazy, even if I'm pretty sure of the outcome.
The main event was decent. I think it did have some decent action, but I think tag title match should have been given more time, and the main event spot. I think we're too used to just amazing multi-man tags. I think they've spoiled us a little bit. So it may not just be that this match wasn't good, but also that the other ones have been so much better.
True.
I'm not sure if I want to see a death match. Like, I've never seen one before, so either I'll love it or it'll just be too much. So we'll have to see.
But with those two guys, I think the chances are better that it's good, right?
Yeah. But remember their lights out match? Remember, like, that was pretty insane too. So I'm thinking it'll be something like that.
Yeah.
Except instead of barbed wire, it'll be explosive.
Right.
Show was pretty good overall. I thought nothing too offensive, so I'll give it a B plus. Standard.
So overall, I thought this was another very strong show. Right. We got in ring. We got a fun opener. A good women's match, I thought.
A-.
A strong tag team match with the Bucks and Proud and Powerful. A decent main event that, I mean, I can't say it was bad. It just underwhelmed for me and compared to a lot of AEW main events. The Orange Cassidy match was nothing. The FTR match kind of felt unnecessary as well, but I still enjoyed it. Segment-wise, Kenny in Kindergarten was good. Taz and Sting was fine. Cargill video was short. The gender reveal was awful. And then we got a sort of reveal of the contract in the Hardy Page story and a furthering of the Mox Omega feud. So I enjoyed this show. It went by quickly, and I gave it an A-. So we were pretty close, right? A+, B+ is very similar. So I thought this was another really good episode.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, let's transition now into some trivia, and that is our off the top of his head, and that is where Jack will respond to some trivia questions from me. So let's do that now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I went back to the rather random trivia because we're back into the 1999 WWF trivia board game that we're going to pull some questions from. So let's see how you do. So they will be random. There's none with multiple choice this week. I went all ones with straight up answers. And I'm honestly, most of the time I come into this thinking you're either going to crush it or struggle. I have no idea. So we'll see. I think you'll do okay, but I'm not really sure. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
What prize was given away to one fan at the very first In Your House pay-per-view?
A house.
Yes. Are you guessing or did you know?
No, I knew.
Yeah, they actually gave a house away. I remember watching that.
Was the beginning of the concept, and then I think they did the first couple times.
And
then they didn't do it.
This one I know you know. In the 1980s, Owen Hart competed as a masked wrestler named...
Blue Blazer?
Yes, I love the Blue Blazer.
And then they brought it back, and then that's how he died, right?
I remember it the first time, and I had no idea who it was at that time.
Was that in WWE?
Yeah.
So then didn't he bring it back in the 90s, and then that's how he died?
Yeah,
right?
And then I took a break from wrestling because I watched a man die, and they kept the show going.
Right.
And I was just so put off by the company at that point
How
that
long?
I took a break.
Did you miss I'm
not sure.
Did you miss the invasion?
No, I think I was back for that.
Okay.
Because it's wrestling, right? Like, it's full of dirt bags and awful things, and we just can't stop watching. But that's
sometimes it's too. Yeah, you always come back.
But by that token, so are sports, right? Like there's a ton of jerks in Hollywood. There's a ton of jerks in every sport. So I mean, we can't just
no sports
avoid everything because we don't like people, because there's idiots in every walk of life.
Yeah, no sports perfect.
Right. X-Pac's real name is
Sean Waltman.
Nice. This one I'm not sure if you know. The first names of Owen Hart's parents and Bret Hart's parents.
Stu and Helen Hart?
Yes, nice. I knew you knew Stu. I didn't know if you'd know Helen or not. What was Ahmed Johnson's finisher called?
Oh, I don't know.
Really? It's from where he's from, I believe, is incorporated in the name. He is one of the more dangerous workers ever.
The Atlanta thingy thing?
Pearl River Plunge.
Oh.
Who did I recently hear in like a shoot interview talking about Ahmed and just how, to be nice, not smart he was? Like he just didn't get anything. I think the example they gave is that I think Vince told him he was gonna be in a match with the Undertaker in like and he just assumed he was gonna beat the Undertaker for the belt, and that was like the example of how not smart he was. Like he just assumed, man, I'm gonna defeat Undertaker. I don't know if it was Mania or something. Anyways, but it was that he was not a very bright individual. Which superstar was known as the Beast?
Brock Lesnar?
No.
Dan Severn.
Oh my goodness, I thought you didn't know. Yes, I remember.
Oh yeah, it's old trivia, right?
I remember him being one of the more boring wrestlers I ever saw.
Yeah, and he was the NWA champion. And then, but he
A killer in
didn't
real
agree
life.
something, and then so they stripped it from him and in TNA, and then Ken Shamrock became the first champion.
Wow, so I wasn't sure you would know who he was, but you know his whole history apparently.
That was my back. So I forgot it's like 1999 trivia.
That's okay. What title did Andre the Giant lose at WrestleMania 6?
World Tag Team title?
Why would you know that?
Because that's the only title he's actually held for more than a day.
What? Okay.
Because he held the WWE title, remember? But then, like,
Yeah.
there's the whole DiBiase thing, and also Colossal Connection, duh.
All right, well, I didn't know.
Doy.
Andre suffered, because it's funny, some of these cards have like multiple questions on the same person. There seems to be no rhyme or reason. So
yeah.
Andre suffered the same fate at WrestleMania 4 and 5. What was it in terms of like match result?
Snake.
Nope.
Count out.
No, he lost by
disqualification.
Correct. 2 years in a row.
Really? You suck, Andre.
This one I know you know, I think. I know you know it, I think. Nice. Well, that's nice turn of phrase there, genius. Who managed LOD during their first run in WWF?
Paul Ellering.
Correct. I
thought
maybe
since it was 1990. Oh wait, this would have been just about when it was LOD 2000, right? So it wouldn't have been Sonny, probably.
I thought, yeah, these were from 1999.
So that's just about LOD 2000. So it might not have been in the trivia.
I just thought that you might think it was too easy to say Ellering, and you might go somewhere else, but no, couldn't fool you. This one, tough. Which manager do the Headbangers credit for breaking them into WWF?
Bruce Pritchard.
Nope. Famous manager.
Paul Bearer.
Now known for his incredibly ridiculous opinions on modern wrestling.
Jim Cornette?
Correct. Yes. Who managed Yokozuna to the WWF title?
Mr. Fuji.
Correct.
And then also later, when he was champion, Jim Cornette.
Correct. What was Ted DiBiase's finishing move?
$1 Million Dream.
Correct. The $1 Million Man failed in his attempt to make which chain-wrapped superstar his indentured servant?
Mr. T?
No.
Junkyard Dog.
Nope. Right era. Big, muscular guy.
Hercules.
With the correct. Hercules Hernandez.
Really?
Yeah.
That's weird.
Name the 2 members of DOA.
Disciples of Apocalypse?
Yeah, who are the members?
Skull?
Yes, why?
8 Ball?
Yes.
Chains?
No, the only Skull and 8 Ball.
Chains and Crush.
We're talking the original. It was just Skull and 8 Ball. It's 99,
really?
man.
I thought one of the originals was Crush.
Nope.
Oh, well then there's also Chains and Crush, I think.
Who was the first WWF light heavyweight champion?
Taka Michinoku.
Yes, and man, did they hype him coming over.
Yeah.
And then it was like...
Nothing. It was just like him and Brian Christopher and like basically nothing else.
They made it sound like God's gift to wrestling was coming to WWF, and then he was just like, nah, he's small.
Yeah. And then, sorry, the DOA, I know the names, but like I don't know which one's which. I know 2 of them are the Harris brothers. Are that the original 2, the Harris brothers?
That's Skull and 8 Ball.
Okay, so the original 2 are the Harris brothers.
That's correct.
So and the Blue brothers, right?
Yep. One of my favorite baby faces from the 80s. What was Coco Beware's bird's name?
Oh, I know this.
I loved Coco Beware when I was really little. He was the one baby face that I enjoyed, and he was basically enhancement talent. Hall of Famer, nonetheless. It has like a normal man's name, kind of.
I know this, but I can't remember.
Christopher Daniels' partner is?
Oh, Frankie.
Correct, Frankie.
Why did I forget? I knew that too. That's the dumb part.
Man, I know Coco was enhancement talent, but his Ghostbuster finisher was awesome. Last question. What comedian did Jerry Lawler attack on the David Letterman show?
Robert Downey Jr.?
No. This one, I thought you might know just because it's super famous. You won't get it then if you don't know. It's Andy Kaufman.
Oh, I remember.
Yeah, so he actually was playing it off as real. It was like super famous because back then people didn't know that it was kayfabe, right? And they thought that this was an actual thing that was happening. So it was a very big deal back at that time. I don't think I saw it live or anything like that, but I definitely heard about it a lot. All right, well, that wraps up, or off the top of his head, you did very well on that one. I didn't really stump you on too many at all. So good job again.
Woo.
All right, so let's get back into the Wednesday Night Wars and take our weekly in-depth look at NXT. So the show begins with a recap from NXT TakeOver Vengeance Day, which was awesome, from Sunday. They showed highlights from the matches along with the end segment where Adam Cole hits a super kick to Kyle O'Reilly and Finn Balor to end the show. And then we obviously need to address that right away. So Kyle O'Reilly walks out to the ring saying he needs Adam Cole to explain himself for what he did at the NXT TakeOver Vengeance Day. Kyle talks about how the Undisputed Era was supposed to be a different kind of group because they weren't going to end up like other groups in wrestling history by breaking up. He says that Cole kicked him in the face, but stabbed him in the back. O'Reilly warns that he'll probably punch Cole in the face, but he's willing to hear him out and he wants him to come out. Roderick Strong then shows up instead, saying that Cole did what he did out of emotion and that Cole regrets doing it. O'Reilly interrupts to say that he didn't want Strong to be here on this peacekeeping mission or to try to talk for Cole. Strong keeps repeating that they have been through so much as he approaches the ring. O'Reilly stops him, tells him not to enter the ring because he doesn't know who he can trust at this point. O'Reilly tells Roddy he didn't need to hear any of this from him, and he calls Cole out again. Balor comes out instead, and O'Reilly says that he wasn't looking for Finn either. Balor tells O'Reilly that if he wants to hear from Cole, he needs to get in line behind Finn. Balor reminds Kyle that O'Reilly had offered Balor his hand at TakeOver, and we all saw what happened then. Strong assures Balor that Kyle had nothing to do with what happened, and Pete Dunne, Danny Burch, and Oney Lorcan show up and attack everybody. During the melee, Dunne and Balor pair off while Burch and Lorcan go after O'Reilly and Strong. Referees finally show up to try and break things up, but Dunne is relentless and it takes multiple attempts for them to do so, but they eventually do manage to get things under control as the segment ends. What did you think about this opening segment, son of mine?
I thought it was good, but like I was really hoping for Cole to come out because he's such a good promo.
Yeah.
That I think that would have helped a ton, but still a good segment. But I liked O'Reilly. He's actually like really good at promos. He's the one member of Era that's good as a babyface. And I'm happy they're keeping Pete Dunne in this because I like him. I think he should be around the main event. So, right. I mean, we'll see what this goes.
I thought this was a really well done segment. Kyle seemed a little nervous at first, but I think it's a bit of a tough promo to do, right? Because you have to be like emotional and sound sincere in things. I thought Balor did a good job. This addressed the situation, but didn't move things too quickly, which I like, because I think if this angle is done right, I want to savor this, right? This should be like AEW style where they drag it out really slowly.
Yeah.
I actually had a different take. I liked that Cole wasn't involved here.
I see what you're saying, and I agree, but like because he's great at promos.
I know, but I want this slow burn, right? So I don't want his response yet. I want them to hold off on that. And as you're saying, he can sort of overshadow other people maybe because he is so good on the mic. And it's not really O'Reilly and Balor's strength, right? So I think I think
Balor's definitely gotten better though.
Leaving Cole out of this equation here, I quite like this. And honestly, I'm a guy that usually wants a match to start off a show, right? But I think this had such impact at the end of Vengeance Day that they sort of needed to start out with this. So I really didn't have a problem with it, despite I do sometimes, right? I just want a hot match coming out of the gate.
Right,
but
you don't want made sense. The classic main roster spiel.
But this, I think, was necessary because this was a talking point coming out of that show, and they addressed it.
Right? It's like it's fine when it makes sense, but and it did here.
It was good. The general manager, William Regal, then shares a message with us from Santos Escobar, who is talking from his car. Escobar says that Karrion Kross can't threaten him and that Escobar is going home and that the match with Kross only happens on his time. Regal then reveals that the match will be next week, and if Escobar doesn't have that match next week, he'll be suspended indefinitely and be stripped of the NXT Cruiserweight title. Regal also obviously lets us...
Because the most prestigious title of all time.
Right. He also lets us know it's a non-title match, obviously, because Kross is not a Cruiserweight. Regal then goes on.
I thought he was.
He then goes on to announce that the main event tonight will be Pete Dunne, Oney Lorcan, and Danny Burch versus Finn Balor, Kyle O'Reilly, and Roderick Strong.
This is one of those times, that we really need Pat McAfee back because he kind of brings that whole group together.
Yeah, what did you think of this Escobar bit?
I thought it was kind of funny. It's like, I mean, that's what you would want to do, right? I wouldn't want to face Cross either.
Right.
But I do like Regal at least doing something about it and not being like, oh, well, I guess we'll have to, you know. So, I mean, we'll see what happens. I'm not sure. I do kind of want to see what would happen if he got stripped with the title. It's
interesting you say that.
Right?
I thought Escobar was really cool here. I think he's a star in the making. And this is a way to get the title off of him without having to lose, which I'm wondering, A, I'm intrigued by it, and B, I'm wondering if they'll actually do that, right? He seems cooler to me without his jobber tag team flanking him here, and I'd be fine if he ditched them and the title altogether and just sort of almost
also
reset.
Could I think a Swerve could be a great champ for that division.
I think that's more fitting, right? So I'm wondering maybe if this is a way to get the title off Escobar, but he doesn't have to look weak by getting pinned or submitting or anything. He just gets stripped. So I don't know. We'll see what happens with it, but I'm interested, and I thought this was a nice little segment.
Yeah.
Next, the Way make their entrance with handing out sort of missing flyers with Austin Theory's picture on them after Theory was attacked.
As if the fans don't know what he looks like, though.
Attacked and kidnapped by Dexter Lumis at TakeOver. And I'm saying, what's with Wednesday night kidnappings, right? It's becoming an epidemic.
Yeah,
we had Marco Stunt, Darby Allin, and now Austin Theory.
Yeah.
So Gargano hands the flyers to the announce team as he joins commentary for the women's tag team match. And it is The Way, which is Candice LeRae and Indy Hartwell versus Shotzi Blackheart and Ember Moon. So Moon and Blackheart start out aggressively with running drop kicks as the match heads to break less than a minute into it, which I thought was a bit weird.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, here's a sudden move and off to commercial. Back from commercial with Moon and Blackheart continuing on offense, with Moon jumping over the top rope with a splash. The Way finally gain control after a cheap shot by LeRae on Blackheart and then a Hartwell boot to Moon to shift the momentum. At this point, we're shown a mysterious white van. It's not super mysterious because it's the exact same one that was terrorizing Grimes, right, at Halloween Havoc.
And they point out later that it's Dexter Lumis' van.
Right, and it is. It's the one that Grimes was terrified of, right, in their match.
Right.
So the Way continue to dominate Moon with Hartwell hitting a sidewalk slam for 2. More quick tags by the heels leading to LeRae hitting a springboard crossbody off the ropes to Moon on the floor. Gargano suddenly leaves to go check on the van in the parking lot as we head into another commercial break. Back from the break with Shotzi Blackheart finally getting the tag from Moon, who had been worked over by the heels for quite a while at this point. After a forearm from Blackheart, Hartwell hits a clothesline. Meanwhile, Gargano is now in the parking lot trying to find Austin Theory in the white van. LeRae hits a low super kick to Blackheart, who's on her knees, for a 2 count before Moon tags back in and hits a double knee to the face for a 2 count. I thought looked good. I think it was from a fireman's carry or something, and then drops her down on. Anyways, it looked good. Moon and Blackheart then climb opposite corners up to the top rope.
Oh yeah, this is the weird bit, right?
We had to we did rewind it a bit because you didn't really see. Was it Indy knocked Shotzi off? I think, and you just kind of all of a sudden it's just Indy standing there, and you didn't really see So we checked it. The camera didn't quite catch it, but they both get knocked off the top rope, basically.
WWE is the best at camera work.
They usually are pretty good. Gargano then shows up with Austin Theory, who for some reason still has his hands and feet tied and is dressed for the beach or something.
He's wearing a belly top for some reason.
Yeah.
Did his clothes get ripped? Because that's not what it looks like.
And they offered no explanation of this, which I thought, why hasn't Johnny untied his hands at this point? You know what I mean?
And he had the bag on his head.
Yeah, I
remember.
Maybe it'll come back to us and they'll explain it, but they offered no explanation here. Candice leaves the ring to go and celebrate with Gargano and Theory, and this, of course, gives Ember Moon the chance to roll up Indy Hartwell for the win. What were your thoughts?
I didn't love this match. It was kind of slow and boring at times. There was the one corner spot where Moon sold really bad, when you were talking about the Indy Hartwell knocking off Shotzi.
Right.
The match was not great. And the theory coming out was kind of confusing to me, and then I also have something else that's kind of off topic, but afterwards.
Okay.
But it has something to do with it, sort of.
I thought this was decent, but I agree it kind of dragged a little bit, and I think that's because they were making time for the Dexter Lumis stuff to be
right,
sort
and
of
I don't think Shotzi and and Ember are a good team. They fit together, but they're not good.
I kind of like them.
You know, like I don't know.
think they're
like
good.
Ember Moon's decent, but I think their characters more fit together than like in ring.
I think if you're gonna have women's tag teams, I think they're a good one to have. I thought Indy actually looked decent on offense in the stretches that she got, which is nice because I think she's pretty new, right? I didn't love the finish as it felt like really main roster, right? We get no clear winner and it's a distraction roll up, which is like a staple of main roster WWE.
Right.
It seems like Shotzi and Ember are in fact a tag team going forward, which I support. I think it's a good idea. I don't understand.
I think it's fine just because what else are they gonna do?
Right. Like I said, I don't understand Theory being still bound or the clothes he's wearing, but hopefully that'll be explained later.
Yeah.
We then get a video.
Oh, wait, hold on. I wanted to.
Oh, sorry. What did you want to say?
So the WWE's music channel just put out Moon's theme, and I listened to it. And when I first heard it, it was like I didn't love it.
Yeah.
But mostly because her old one was way better. And then it wasn't so bad. But arenas are loud and tend to hide the theme sometimes or make them sound different or better.
Right.
And this is the case. Her theme's like really bad.
I can't even
the lyrics,
picture it's the wrong word, but you know what I mean.
The lyrics made no sense, and it sounds like a crappy modern pop song or something like that rather than a cool or even decent entrance theme. Also makes a Damien Priest theme sound different, but
okay.
Whatever. I'm just saying her theme's really bad.
Fair enough. Yes, you were on a rant to me about that yesterday. So then we get a video featuring not really returning because it's just a video of him on a plane, but Pat McAfee on a plane talking about how everyone else is now realizing what he's always said, that Adam Cole is a scumbag. McAfee says he'll accept all apologies and said Cole's a bum, and McAfee asked people to hashtag
I love this.
Hashtag Pat was right since he was right about Cole.
I love the hashtag Pat was right.
So this guy can definitely cut a good promo, right? And I found this amusing because the only time he shows up on TV is to point out when he was right about something. And
Yeah.
I feel like that's really consistent with the character he's created. And I actually like this little promo. What about you?
Yeah, it was really funny. And I really like the hashtag Pat was right. I was even considering like actually doing that
Right.
just because
Yeah.
it's funny. And I also forgot to mention something about the last match, but Gargano in commentary said that the match was Revengeance Day.
Yeah, that was
Which
funny.
I
little
thought
line.
was really
It's
funny.
Revengeance Day.
But this is really funny too, and I do like that too. I didn't even think about it, but like he came on TV just to say, "Hey
Right.
guys, I was right.
You haven't seen me in
You all
months, but
suck."
guess what? I was right about hating this guy.
Right.
See, I told you. I thought that was kind of funny.
I like that he's not even like, "Yeah, Adam, good for you for." He's like, "Yeah, he's a scumbag. I was right."
Yeah. We then have Kushida being interviewed backstage by Mackenzie Mitchell while he's sort of getting looked at by the trainer. Kushida says he was honored to be at TakeOver, but he's not done with Johnny Gargano. Bronson Reed then shows up to say he's not done with
I
Johnny.
swear, he shows up at the most random times. He was like giving his opinion on the Dusty Cup, the women's one, I think, the one time.
Yeah, they're finding.
He shows up at the most random times.
Trying to find a place for him, I think. So he's not done with Johnny either, while noting that he is also gunning for the NXT North American title. Malcolm Bivens happens to be seated close by, and he shows up and says that he knows the perfect opponent for Kushida tonight. The trainer tells Kushida that he is in fact cleared, and Bivens decides to go talk to Regal about this match idea he has. Your thoughts?
It was fine. Bivens is pretty good. Reed made no sense. He's not good. Nothing much here, honestly. It was fine.
I liked both parts of this. I thought Reed sounded natural, and this was a good little spot for him.
Yeah, he did, but like...
And what he said makes sense too, right? Like, he's got issues with Gargano, but he also sort of he wants this title. I don't know. He's not done with them either. So there's people.
It didn't make sense here.
Probably just because he wants the title, I would think.
Yeah, I guess.
I like managers in general, and I think Bivens is a good one if they give him a little bit more of a chance. I also like that there's a line forming for the title, and that feels realistic to me. That's how it should be, that everybody wants it. And I'm hoping they're trying to do the AEW thing where they sort of plant seeds of future interactions and matches and things. So I liked both parts of that segment, actually. We then get back in ring with Swerve Scott versus Leon Ruff.
Leon Ruff has bad hair now.
Yeah, he sort of got his hair out. Ruff is aggressive early and uses his speed to avoid Scott's attempts at offense. Ruff then hits an arm drag before Scott hits an impressive looking sort of power bomb onto his knee for a backbreaker that I thought was cool. Scott then kicks Ruff from the apron and gets a 2 count. Ruff makes a comeback with a clothesline along with a nice cutter off the ropes for 2 as Scott gets his hand on the bottom rope. Ruff avoids more moves from Scott, then hits a double stomp, but Scott hits a big clothesline to stop the momentum. The finish comes when Ruff suddenly hooks Scott's arms and hits a crucifix pin to win the match. After the match, Swerve offers his hand, then attacks Ruff and throws him into the turnbuckles from a fireman's carry. He gets in Ruff's face as the camera's there and says it's Swerve's time and it's Swerve's house.
And he drools on the mat.
He did. That was Ruff drooling.
I wrote Ruff won despite getting no entrance. He is truly an underdog. I thought the match was fine. It was pretty short. I was gonna say I want Scott to win, but think this is kind of interesting. Like, it might make him even more pissed off, which could lead to him being better. So,
yes.
Honestly, I'm fine seeing where this goes because they have actually been doing pretty good with him lately.
I think Swerve's pretty awesome. I thought some of his offense looked
that
really
knee he hit,
looked really
that
good,
was
and
awesome.
some of his kicks looked really stiff. I thought he looked good. I really don't understand having him lose to Ruff here, but I guess like you're saying, it is for the development of his character after the match where he's finally going to get pushed into being like full heel or I don't know what, but I honestly still don't really get the appeal of Ruff.
Yeah, even then, like, I'm saying, I'm just trying to rationale for it, but, like, I still probably would have rather have him win because it's Leon Ruff.
Yes. In my opinion, there's just better ways to spend the time that they spend on Leon Ruff.
I think they could have had him lose to someone else, maybe, like,
I know Rust was already involved in a match, but it would have been nice
Kushida.
for him.
They could have used Kushida.
Would have been nice for Rust to pick up a win if they want to have Swerve lose.
Even though they're both kind of heels, but still.
I hope Swerve gets some attention going forward and that Ruff gets less was basically my final note. So then we have Caden Carter and Casey Catanzaro versus Aaliyah and Jessie Kamea. Wow, what a star-studded match this one was. So Casey and Caden...
Wait, can Carter and Catanzaro even win? Like...
What do you mean?
The question has to be asked. They're up against
those two
squad.
powerhouses?
Yeah.
Well, that's basically like the two-man power trip they're facing, so...
I know, right?
What chance do they have?
Right?
So Casey and Caden get a sort of inset backstage promo talking about Xia Li and how she isn't the one they knew, and they're blaming her master for her sudden character change.
They are not good at promos. The more I see them do it, the more I think they're not good at it.
They're just really generic babyface stuff, right? Like whatever. It's
and they called Tian Sha. What was her name again?
May something.
Mei Ying, right?
Mei Ying.
I was like, do you mean Tian Sha? But that was her name.
That was the original story, right?
I guess, yeah.
Yeah. So Carter and Catanzaro start out fast using quick tandem offense on Kamea to score a near fall. The heels then turn the tide with some tandem offense of their own before Caden levels Kamea with a right hand. Dual tags lead to Casey gaining control of Aaliyah with kicks and punches. Catanzaro hits a clothesline and a somersault leg drop to Aaliyah's back for a 2 count. Carter is then in and hits a neck breaker as Casey comes off the top with a splash for the win. Post-match, Xia Li shows up with Boa. Casey and Carter try to talk to her, and Casey's saying they were her friend. Lee grabs Casey's hand and puts her fingers on the hand sort of to make the 2 black marks across the top of her hand. And Lee told Casey that next week she's going to hurt her. Yes, please.
I thought she said purge.
Your thoughts?
I thought she said purge, but whatever.
Maybe.
It doesn't matter.
I think the general
my only
same
match
idea.
note was Jessie Kamea had a really bad sell on a head scissors. It's like a delayed sell.
Yeah, it literally like she just ends up jumping herself, right, and flipping onto her back.
Yeah, match was fine. It's just an enhancement match, really. I'm more interested in next week's match, and they were all in the Mayon Classic. I think the same one.
They were.
So
they all came in around the same time, and we're all very like low card at the same time.
Yeah, so it does make sense that they were friends. So.
Yep. I thought the match was not great. Kamea looked okay on offense, but needs work in other areas, sort of referring to what you were saying.
It was an enhancement match. There's never much to say about those, I find.
Catanzaro and Carter are growing on me, as I've said, but I still think they get a little bit too ambitious sometimes.
I think more in ring is where I'd like them, because their promos are certainly not appealing.
And at the end of the day, this was 3 very inexperienced wrestlers and Aaliyah trying to pull off a good TV match, right? And I don't think they were successful, but
3 inexperienced wrestlers and Aaliyah. That's a recipe for a 5-star match.
Right. The Lee interaction afterwards makes sense to me, and it's actually a nice baby step, right, up in opponents for her. So instead of just jobbers, she's going to get Casey
And there's
Catanzaro.
A little more story behind it, I guess.
Yeah, there is a bit of a backstory,
so to speak.
And I feel like it still, though, should be like Catanzaro maybe gets a quick flurry to start and then gets
dies.
Killed. Like, that's what it needs to be,
yes.
So let's see where they go. But yeah, it's time for them to start moving Lee up from just jobber matches, and I think this is a logical step.
And let's go from weakness to strength.
Right. Locker room promo with
after this then.
With Tyler Rust and Malcolm Bivens.
This is not what I was talking
I was gonna
about.
say, really, you loved it? Not that this was bad, but I didn't know you were so fired up about Tyler Rust and Malcolm Bivens.
Sorry, I didn't make a note of it, so that's my bad.
Bivens is basically insulting Kushida ahead of the match, and then he talks up Tyler Rust and says he knows Kushida isn't 100%, but that he is cleared to wrestle. And I like this because I think the whole thing with Bivens here is that he's there while Kushida's getting checked out, right? So he knows Kushida's not 100%. So this is a smart time for him to sort of have his man challenge him, because hopefully Kushida is hurt enough for Rust to get a win here. So I like this, but I do not like the diamond in the Rust line.
I did. It was really clever at first.
No, I never liked it.
I liked it, like, similar to Tom Phillips from the Heavens call for Montez Ford.
Yeah.
But now I'm finding it to be overused, because at first I thought it was kind of clever, like, the diamond in the rough thing. And I thought it was a cool use of the name, but
I don't like it.
I think it's getting overused. Like,
right.
You don't need to use it every time. I get it.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, is it's being overused now, probably. We then transition to, I guess, what you were looking forward to a second ago, which is the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic Trophy presentation.
At first, I was like, what the hell? Why? Because, like, they've literally never done this ever.
Question.
They usually just get the trophy after the match.
Question. How many trophies were there?
1.
How many teams won?
2.
That math does not check out for me. So we have 1 trophy for 2.
You're right, because they're just putting their name on it. I did kind of have a feeling it would be 1 trophy, because I noticed, like, when they were doing the entrances, they always, like, point at the trophy, whatever. It looked the same both times.
And I guess it makes sense, right? Why not just put the winners for both on there?
Weird is, so, like, for all the other winners where there's no women's ones, right? It has the male names on the left, and then just stars on the right, and then all of a sudden there's the female name. So were they, like, planning for it, or, like? I don't think I noticed this before. So I think what happened is, because I don't think it was originally like that. I think it was just originally like blah blah blah.
Probably.
They won,
and they've switched it now.
Yeah, they made a new plate so that, like, now they can have both on it each year, which would make more sense. It's not like they've been planning this for, like, years and, like, just been waiting for it.
We're gonna do 4 years and then we'll introduce the women's.
I think if they were planning for a while, I think they would have waited longer, because, like, they could have maybe had more teams,
or fans in the stands or anything.
Yeah.
So Beth Phoenix is in the ring with the trophy. Beth says that every single team in the men's and women's Dusty Cup stepped up. We then get a video package
that's not entirely true.
showing women's winners Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez, along with the men's winners of MSK, which is Nash Carter and Wes Lee. MSK make their entrance wearing some new MSK t-shirts, and they head to the ring.
Oh my god. The thing they did, like, they were, like, still celebrating was really weird.
Lee energetically talks about being the Dusty Cup Tag Team Classic Champion, and they go over the list of names on the trophy. Carter reveals that on March 3rd, MSK will challenge Danny Burch and Oney Lorcan for the NXT
I think they're,
Tag Team Championships. Now speak.
Sorry. I think they're building on March 3rd, because I think that's also when Shaq's match is.
They are building that show big time, right?
Yeah.
They seem to be.
And because that's when Shaq's match is, and I think there's other stuff in AEW, so I think NXT's trying to, and honestly, 2 title matches, both of which are interesting to me, appeal more than a crappy
Shaq.
More
Jade
than Shaq.
Cargill's in-ring debut. Come on, man.
Shaq's in-ring debut too, other than the Andre the Giant Battle Royal, but we can't count that.
So, I count that. That is canon. Lee says that it's going to sound great when they are announced as the new NXT Tag Team Champions. I'm going to sort of break this into the 2 chunks. So I thought this was a better job by MSK than their last promo they did. So I think that basically we just have to accept, right? They're the energetic, fun-loving guys, and I don't have a problem with it, because there's enough people on this roster, especially right now with the main event scene, cutting really serious promos, right? So something different, like these guys who are just like
even
fun-loving
like O'Reilly,
guys.
Who's the babyface, is like pretty serious,
right? So I think there's room for some guys that are just like kind of having fun and being a little bit silly in their promos.
Yeah, because main event is for sure serious, because even Pete Dunne's very serious, and then also Balor, obviously.
Balor, everyone in Era right now, like, it's all very serious up there, right? So I thought this was good. What did you think?
It was good. Like, I thought this was better than some of their previous promos and whatnot.
I thought their first time talking on NXT was pretty bad, so I was happy with this one.
Yeah. But the second half is better.
So yeah, and which we'll talk about right now. So Raquel Gonzalez and Dakota Kai make their entrance next, as Barrett reminds us that they were his pick to win the tournament all along.
I hate Wade Barrett now.
Dakota Kai says that they feel awesome and moments like this are why they do this. She adds that they were by far the best team and it's no surprise that they won. And then Jack freaks out because Shayna Baszler's theme hits and they come out carrying their championship belts.
Also, I must mention that they only use Shayna Baszler's theme and they only use Dakota Kai's theme, both of which are great choices, so people being smart.
Right.
Also, I thought Kai was kind of like babyface there.
I agree.
Like, it just felt weird. Not that it was bad, but it was really out of character.
Very sudden, right?
But like, I guess it's maybe just they're happy they're winning.
Oh, it feels awesome to win. And
right, but it should have been more like, I told you so, right? Like,
But that subtle shift makes sense if they're going to be feuding with mega heels, right? So
right, so maybe they need to take a quick break from it.
And I think it's just to improve the dynamic for that match.
Right, and like maybe it's like Death Triangle right now.
Yep. So Baszler enters the ring and says that Kai and Gonzalez were on the right side of history, winning the first ever Dusty Cup. Baszler goes
on the wrong side of history.
Goes on to say that when they face off, Kai and Gonzalez will be on the wrong side of history. Kai then introduces Raquel to Nia, who Kaya simply describes as big, right? She's like, this is Nia Jax. She's big, which I thought was pretty funny. Jax interjects saying that she has beaten Kai up before. Kai then reminds Baszler that she ran away after Rhea Ripley beat her.
Well, yeah, I was interested in that because I was going to I wanted to see how Kai would do that because, like, she literally was afraid of Baszler. So.
Yeah, that was back when she was super mega timid babyface, right? And
when she sucked.
Terrified. Gonzalez, although remember when Baszler was just terrorizing the
division.
That
was when Baszler was cool, and then she was cool, and then she was cool, and then she got called up, and then she was not cool. Apparently Vince doesn't like her, and then...
Of course not.
Well,
she's not beautiful enough
for him. And then also, that's why Black and Andrade are out right now. Without Heyman, those people are screwed. I think the only reason Baszler's being used is because she's teaming with Nia.
Like, who could possibly want to watch an actual, like, tough, awesome, cool woman that could just kick the crap out of everyone because she's not pretty enough.
Right, because no one liked Ronda Rousey, right? Ronda Rousey sucks.
Although she's more like traditionally attractive, I guess, right? So,
Shayna Baszler's cool.
I thought this was good because they just talked about how Baszler ran away after losing to Ripley, and then Gonzalez mentions that she beat Ripley in a last woman standing match.
Which I thought was kind of cool because, like, Gonzalez has never been around Baszler or Jax, so it kind of just, like,
I beat someone that beat you, so the point you're supposed to take from that, right, is that I'm probably better than you. If you can't beat Rhea Ripley and I did beat her, I'm probably better than you are, is what we're supposed to get. So, and this is the point where we see MSK and Beth are shown in the corner eating popcorn, and like MSK are being overly animated and stuff, and it was pretty funny, actually, I thought. Just a nice contrast to the serious talk going on. Baszler says...
And that fits their characters.
Yep. Baszler says that Kai is scared, just like when Shayna broke her arm in the past. Kai explains that she is not the same person that she was then, and she will kick Shayna's head off.
That seems like Tony. That's like what Tony Storm said.
And again, this seems more baby facing of Kai, but that's okay. Right. Gonzalez adds that a lot has changed since Shayna left because Raquel and Dakota run things at NXT now. Gonzalez goes on to say that they are going to take the women's tag team titles in 2 weeks. Jax says that Dusty Rhodes used to call her a big, bad, beautiful bitch, and that he was right, and that Shayna and Jax are the most dominant force in WWE. And I like this part. Gonzalez sort of steps a little closer to Jax, picks up her mic, and just says, Dusty never met me, sort of thing, right?
Which I thought was great.
You were the biggest, baddest one because I didn't exist at that point, and now I do, and it's not you anymore. So I thought that was really cool. Baszler says that in 2 weeks on March 3rd, they will come here onto Kai and Gonzalez' home turf to humiliate them. As Baszler and Jax leave the ring, Gonzalez tells Jax she's going to take that boot from the Dusty Cup and shove it so far up Nia's hole that she'll never get it out, as MSK are dying of laughter. In fact, I think it was Wesley, right, is like lying on the ground. Obviously in reference to Nia's recent comment in one of...
Yeah, I think she like missed a leg drop on the apron or something, and then like she shouted, "My hole!"
Audibly caught, yes, saying that. What did you think of this? I know you liked it, but tell us why.
I loved it. It was great. Baszler is just, she's great, and she just was able to be good here, I found.
She's great, and she was able to be good. That's what you tune in for, folks. Amazing analysis.
Like, they let her be her good, right?
Okay.
Like, main roster, she doesn't get to do that.
Yeah.
And I thought the exchanges were really good. I thought Kai kind of introducing them to Gonzalez was kind of funny, and then Gonzalez kind of shot at Baszler was good. Gonzalez shot at Nia was good. I thought Baszler's kind of callback to her feud with Dakota was good. I thought the whole line was good. MSK were like for what they
just
were
comic
doing.
relief, right?
Right, they were like honest and then fit their character. So I thought overall this is a great segment and probably my highlight of the show.
And the fact that, and I liked it too, and this was a long segment, and it did not bother me at all.
It didn't even really feel like a long segment.
I thought it was really cool. All the women did a really good job. And
right, I'd even watch it again probably.
With a bit more time, they could build this into a match that I really, really want to see.
For sure. I already want to see it based on some of the history between them.
It was long for sure, but I liked it a lot, and it was great to see Shayna back where she belongs, in my opinion, and I'm sure yours as well.
Yeah.
I normally don't love main roster people on NXT. See Edge a few weeks ago. But this was an appropriate use of this, I think. And this
I think Baszler belongs here, though, right?
This is what these belts are for, right? Like, and I think they should maybe be at NXT for a while.
Right. I think Baszler could be like, Baszler should be doing what Balor's doing, coming back and just like, I think Baszler belongs in NXT. She's arguably better here. No, for sure better here. And I just think the creative seems to be, for the most part, better than the main roster, right? I just think Baszler would be better here. She could be like she'd probably be dominating for like forever again, but she'd have different competition. I think it'd be interesting. She could have a pretty decent feud with Ember Moon, right? Because Ember Moon's the person Baszler beat for her first title. Right. So I just think Baszler could do a lot here. I think Nia Jax less so, but I think Baszler being back is really cool.
And I'm not trying to be mean. My only fear, is that Nia hurts somebody, like specifically maybe Kai, because Kai is so small, right? And Nia is a bit
not even like jokingly, but like she is kind of.
I was gonna say reckless, but it's not even that she's reckless. It's like she doesn't understand.
She's kind of like a Mabel.
She doesn't understand how strong she is.
Well, kind of like Mabel. I remember he broke Undertaker's face. Yeah. And I think also Diesel. He hurt Diesel too. Yeah. So. Honestly, they're pretty similar.
So love the segment. Really impressed because that was a big, long segment, and it was very entertaining.
I loved it.
We then take a look in on a parking lot conversation between O'Reilly and Roderick Strong really quickly, but we get no audio as it's a really far shot in the parking lot, so we just see that they're interacting, but we don't know what they're saying. This was kind of funny and unique, right? We get an Io Shirai photo shoot that was interrupted by Toni Storm attacking her.
I really like this too.
And it's just like, I guess we are to believe that the photographer just kept taking pictures.
So you get like the photo of her like taking photos, right? And then you get a photo of Toni Storm kicking her.
Right.
And then you get like the photos of her beating up Shirai.
So it's like when WWE...
This must be like the meanest photographer ever.
It's like when WWE, after a pay-per-view on the next TV show, right? And they just show still shots of the matches from the pay-per-view.
Except this is like... I don't know.
I thought this was a pretty unique, funny way to do this. I thought it was, and the first shot was just really Tony's boot in Io's face, right? So I thought it was a pretty clever way to do this.
I was laughing. It was just it was unique, and it was funny because it's like this photographer,
I'm just gonna keep snapping pictures, right. I guess.
I feel like you'd have to have some balls to take pictures of. Continue to take pictures while Io Shirai is getting beat up.
So I thought that was a cool idea.
It was really funny.
We then transition into the Kushida versus Tyler Rust match. And it starts with holds and counters to no advantage. Kushida then fights through, hits a handspring back elbow, and pulls Rust into, I think it's called a European clutch pin for a 2 count.
Really?
Rust is it? I don't know if it was Barrett might have. I think Barrett might have said it.
You pulled notes, right? I was gonna say, look at you knowing moves. But...
I doubt it. Rust is annoyed and levels Kushida with a forearm. Kushida hits an enziguri on the apron, and Rust takes control inside and starts wearing Kushida down. Rust uses a variety of holds, and Kushida escapes to the floor as we head to a commercial break. Back from the break, Kushida rallies with a hip toss, cartwheel, and his fastball punch. The hoverboard lock is blocked.
Is that what that's called?
Yes.
Oh, okay. That's what No Way Jose used to use.
He did.
Something like that.
The hoverboard lock is blocked, and Kushida fires off some of those small kicks to the face. More holds and counters. Rust tries again for that clutch pin, but Kushida counters it into his own, only for Rust to turn it into a rear naked choke. There were some nice transitions. That was a really nice
sequence. I don't remember it exactly, but I know what you're talking about because that kind of triggered my memory. I remember it being really smooth. He tried to do that bridge pin he did earlier.
Yes.
And Rust kind of countered it. It was really cool. I liked it.
And then, so Kushida needs to go after Russ' hands to break this choke. And then Russ sort of transitions and sort of somehow incorporates the leg into the hold too,
Yeah,
which
and
I
then he's
thought
got
was a
this
cool
weird
progression.
submission, but it's like it's unique. It was kind of cool.
Yep, I liked it. Kushida counters into a pin to get free and kick Russ and sort of kicks at Russ' arms. Kushida eventually applies the hoverboard lock, and Bivens quickly climbs onto the apron and like verbally throws in the towel,
Yeah.
I guess you would say. What did you think of the match?
I don't know. Like, I thought the match was pretty good, actually. I think Kushida's starting to show why he's been so hyped.
Yep.
I think I still want to see more, because, like, Tyler Russ seems to be pretty good, and so is John Gargano. I'm not discrediting Kushida or anything, but I want to see him, like, maybe try to elevate someone else who, like, we haven't seen much. I want him, you know, because, like, I feel like Rust, we've seen, like, he can do good stuff, and Gargano as well.
Yeah.
But, like, I want him to, like, be able to have a good match with someone who's not, like, super good, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, or, like, drag someone to a decent match, kind of like Kai was able to do with Shotzi.
Kushida
you know what I mean?
is starting to win me over in ring,
Yeah,
but
for
I'm
sure.
still like, there's something lacking.
Yeah,
right?
the
Just
character work, it's
character-wise.
kind of just not there.
So I thought this was a really good TV match, and Rust continues to impress
I'm
me.
not sure how I feel about the Bivens thing, though.
And I know I say it all
I
the
don't know.
time, but like I watch this guy a ton in other places, which reminds me I should complain about Championship Wrestling from Hollywood because it's now unwatchable again. But anyways, so I saw him a lot wrestling there, and I knew he was good and stuff, but he's really talented.
He's like
so
on another level.
I'm
kinda.
hoping he can get some wins at some point. Rust. Sorry, I don't know what I was trying to say here, but I think that I like the Bivens part because he is protecting his investment, right?
Right.
So rather than having
yeah.
Kushida break the guy's arm, he quickly throws in the towel to sort of save his meal ticket, I guess.
And wasn't that what Taz did as well?
Yes.
When Cage and
Yep. Right, it kind of makes sense because you're making
Right,
money
yeah.
off. You're making your 10% or whatever off of this guy.
not
and
your
if he's-
30%.
Right, and if he's injured, you can't do that. So I
Yeah.
thought Kushida looked good again in the ring, and I guess maybe he is growing on me a little bit.
Yeah. For sure, from an in-ring perspective, like I said, you want to see a little more. Make sure that like he is actually good. I do think he is actually decent. Like I said, he's getting there, but the character work is really where it kind of, doesn't
Yeah.
match up.
Yep. We then get a really quick vignette just hyping Zoe Stark's debut, another one from Championship Wrestling from Hollywood that I know. And she's up next. Another one that, to be honest, looked a lot better here than I've seen her before. And I don't know what it is. I guess, you know what? It's probably the Performance Center, right? She's learning as well as she's
Right.
there.
It's not like she's learning on TV. She's like honing her skills and
Right.
then coming to
Exactly.
TV.
So, despite the vignette saying that she is next, we know WWE doesn't know what next means, so she's
Right.
not next.
They literally have no understanding of the definition.
Because next we get a promo from earlier in the day from LA Knight at his home as they knock on the door.
LA Knight.
He said that he was going to claim his perch at the top of NXT while adding that nobody is going to stop him. He dropped his little fact of life line at the end, and that's going to be his catchphrase here, I think, as well, and that this is LA Knight's game.
Yeah, he said LA Knight, but I thought he was going to do like the LA
He
Knight.
hasn't yet.
I know, that was kind of disappointing.
So, I mean, this guy can talk. Obviously, he's so comfortable and natural speaking. Let's see what they do with him, I guess. He did reintroduce his catchphrase, the whole, that's a fact of life, which he's used elsewhere. So
I remember loving his impact theme. It was like, there was like the intro band, and it's like, and that's a fact of life, and then like, the theme.
And I'm wondering if he's
His
bringing
theme
the
was
whole
good.
dummy, yeah, thing as well at some point.
I watched that segment where he's like the top 5 dummies in Impact Wrestling or whatever.
Yeah.
That was kind of funny.
I thought this was a nice little promo again.
Yeah.
So then we do actually get the Zoe Stark versus Valentina
Now it's
Feroz. So Stark is obviously Lacey Ryan from the Indies. She shows off some offense right away, but Feroz sort of counters it with a judo throw to stop the momentum. Stark then turns things back around by dropping Feroz on the turnbuckle before hitting a super kick and a half Nelson suplex that looked pretty good. Stark then hits what I thought was a pretty vicious looking sliding knee. And then she sort of smiles a little bit, which I liked. She signals for the end and hits a cool looking GTS style finisher as she flips.
It's kind of
Feroz.
like similar to the GTH, I think.
I thought it looked
sorta.
cool.
Yeah, it was cool. I'm not sure exactly what it was, and it was cool. It looked awesome, but I'm not sure she could hit that on everyone.
Stark looked really good to me here. She looked very aggressive and hit some high impact moves. The sliding knee and the modified GTS finish, or whatever she's going to call it, I thought looked really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Again,
I think we saw this in the promo package or whatever, like when she was in the Dusty Cup. That's the match that I missed, so I haven't actually seen her until this.
she looked good here, considerably better than what I've seen on the indies, and I guess that's the point of the Performance Center. Like you said, get better off TV, come on TV, right?
Right, which I think what AEW needs eventually, because maybe then the Varsity Blondes will be good, right? Like,
yeah.
Maybe Top Flight will be amazing, right? Like, so they need something like that. Even if it's like, I don't know, like maybe a wrestler training school or something.
Or even some of them, like some of the companies will just let guys go work the indies, right?
Yeah, I think that's also good too, because then like it doesn't really matter if they're not great, because it's like so low tier.
It's kind of how I feel about Private Party on Impact. They're using that to sort of just get further experience, right? On a spot that's not seen by anyone.
I think that's another thing that's not great about Code is that the indie scene, whether people see it or not, it plays such a crucial role in pro wrestling. Where people can get known is where people can get experience, right? Like, so I think without it, I think at least the wrestling world is a little crippled.
And honestly, some of those indie promotions are just barely hanging on at the best of times, right? Let alone when they haven't been able to run a show. So I hope when things recover that there are still some indie promotions near us. I'm sure Smash will still exist in Toronto, so we can go check that out, which is a pretty good promotion, I find.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so next we get a vignette that's where Scarlett Bordeaux says that Santos Escobar likes to play games, but playing with time is not his forte. He doesn't have that power. Carrion says that Escobar has two options. He can, which I loved because he didn't say two choices. He got it right. He can either show up next week and get his head caved in by Carrion's forearm, or he can not show up, lose his title, and Cross will catch up with him anyways. Tick-tock.
Nice.
I thought this was a cool promo, and I much prefer this version of Scarlett, where the last couple weeks she seems to be somewhat less mysterious and cryptic in her speaking, right? Because I thought she went a bit too far for a few weeks there. I'm still nervous about how this is going to go for Escobar, but if it's me, I have Escobar not show up, get stripped, so he can walk away from the Cruiserweight division and move on. What did you think of this?
I thought it was fine. It's standard stuff from them. I agree. Scarlett's been better as of late. I'm honestly surprised they haven't used her as what she did in Impact. Like
the smoke show?
Right. I'm surprised they haven't done that, because that seems like such a Vince thing to do.
Because that was when we were going to see it too, right? She was there then. I think she was pretty new at that point.
Her catchphrase was to make wrestling sexy again.
Right.
I'm really surprised they haven't done that, because like they got like Lana and whatever, but
NXT's a little different, and I like that about it. Less exploitative, if make.
No, I'm surprised they didn't just bring her to the main roster and do it.
Yeah, true. I think both that pairings moving up at some point, right?
Yeah.
So then we do get our main event, which is Oni Lorcan, Danny
Another
Burch,
6-man tag main event.
Right, and Pete Dunne versus Kyle O'Reilly, Finn Balor, and Roderick Strong. So Roddy comes out doing the Undisputed Era pose, but Kyle walks right by him without any sort of reaction or theatrics, which I thought was a nice touch. And sort of the look on Strong's face too, right? Like of, uh-oh, sort of thing. What's going on? Kyle starts with Oni, and Kyle takes control early. When it comes time to tag, another nice little thing I saw here, Kyle tags Finn first and not Roddy, right? Which I kind of thought was a nice touch as well. Kyle and Finn work some tandem offense targeting Oni's arm. Strong finally enters, and Dunn does some joint manipulation on him. Kyle gets a nice hot tag where he hits dragon screws on basically everyone, I think. O'Reilly leaps off the apron and is met with a Dunn forearm that looked pretty stiff going into the commercial. Returning, Kyle is isolated and Dunn is working him over. The heels then use quick tags and cut the ring in half and isolate him. Dunn is legal and he knocks Roddy off the apron. Kyle kicks free of an ankle lock and wants to hit a rebound lariat, but Pete Dunne ducks. Balor tags in and takes control of Dunn. Balor trips Oni and double stomps him. Dunn gets a 2 count on an inside cradle where before Finn has a pin broken up. Roddy sends Oni into Danny Burch and takes Oni out with a wrecking ball dropkick before Burch lays him out. Inside, Finn counters a bitter end and Dunn blocks the 1916. I thought that was cool too. They're both sort of avoiding each other's signature moves. A Balor sling blade connects and the shotgun dropkick is then interrupted by a distracted referee, right? Somebody was out with the belt, I think, and the ref's reaching through the ropes for the belt.
I think it was either Lorcan or Burch put the belt in.
Yes, and so the ref's sort of reaching out, and he ends up taking the shotgun dropkick. So,
or I think Dunn kind of got knocked into him.
Yeah,
I thought this was actually a decent ref bump.
It was. It made a little bit of sense. Finn still goes up for the coup de grace, but Adam Cole happens to show up to knock him down. Cole then stalks Kyle outside the ring and gives him a big pump kick
Yeah,
outside.
Kylo kind of looks up at him and is like kind of surprised, and then
And boom.
It's like maybe they're about to reconcile, and then Cole just goes after him.
And then he also gives Kyle a nice brain buster on the steel steps that looked pretty good. Roddy lays out Birch, who picks up the NXT title as a weapon. Roddy tries to take the title to Finn, but Balor instinctively hits him with the Pele kick, right? So even though Roddy's trying to sort of be a peacemaker.
And then he kind of realized it's Roddy, and he's like, oh.
Yep. So that was a nice touch as well. That miscommunication right there allows Dunn to sneak in and hit the bitter end to pin Finn Balor.
Hell yeah, keeping him in the main event.
Post-match, Balor stands up with the NXT title, but Adam Cole drops him with a super kick.
Yeah.
Cole grabs the NXT title and holds it high above his head as the show ends. Thoughts?
Yeah.
My son.
Good match. I liked it better than AEW's, surprisingly.
Oh, me too.
But I think AEW is just maybe off this week, because usually, like we say, they're really good at multi-man tags.
Yep.
And not everyone is going to be good. But this match was great. Just the lineup alone, on paper, this looks great, right?
Yes.
And I think it delivered in that aspect. I think the storylines running out throughout were great. I liked Dunn and Balor countering each other's finishers, kind of just like reminding us like they know each other well after that classic they had at TakeOver, right?
Very familiar, yeah.
And I liked kind of Balor just kind of going for it, because like he's just like kind of a loner right now, right? So he's kind of just like, you know, he'd rather just like hit him and then like make sure, because like it's probably going to be one of his enemies. And I like Cole coming in. That brainbuster looked sick.
It did.
And I liked him kind of like selling his back after, because he did look like he landed on the edge.
I like Cole not speaking again too, right? Like we're still not getting his
still
reasons, which I like. Right? Drag it out, man, because I enjoy this.
I like Dunn getting the pin, because that keeps him in the conversation, right?
Clean pin in the middle of the ring with his finisher.
And then I like Cole attacking Balor after, reminding us that that's what he's after.
Right.
That's his main goal. And he might have jinxed himself, but then again, it's Adam Cole, so.
I thought this match was excellent, even though we didn't exactly get a clean finish.
I almost liked that.
That's what I was going to say. There is a time and a place for this kind of complicated finish, and as long as you don't do it too often, right, it can work really well, and I think it did here. This match was really fast, really clean by all these guys. Just a lot of fun to watch. It furthered a storyline that I'm really enjoying, and I hope they keep taking their time with it. Like I said, not having Cole speak at all this week, I think is cool, because it's going to make us really anticipate what he is going to say.
And it's almost like, is this even WWE? Because that's not really them.
Because normally it'd be like they've broken up and they're back together by now, sort of thing.
Right.
I thought it was really well done. What did you think of the show overall?
I thought it was pretty nice. The opening segment, and it was really good. I think I did want Cole to speak, because I think he's good at promos, but I do, in the end game, think him not speaking was a pretty good choice.
Slow burn this one, right?
Right. The tag match that we got with the women was not good. I did not enjoy that. The photo shoot was funny. I know that's way ahead, but I just wanted to say that was funny.
Yep.
Ruff and Scott was whatever. It's kind of a squash match. The other women's tag with Kaden and Casey was not great either. Great. The Dusty Rhodes Trophy presentation, despite the great main event, was still my favorite thing. I just really liked it.
It was fun.
It was good. Kushida and Tyler Ross was really good, actually.
Yeah, I liked it.
Stark looked cool. In her win, it was a squash match, nothing much there. Main event was good, so I'll give that an A-.
Nice. Overall, I struggled
just barely better than AEW.
I struggled a bit rating this show, because it was like bizarro NXT, because normally what we say with NXT, right, is the wrestling is always strong, and then the character development, storyline stuff.
It was like, for the most part, the opposite.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. So for me, wrestling-wise, only the main event and the Kushida-Russ match were strong. I think Zoe Stark looked good, but it was a squash, right?
Those can't really be judged on match quality.
So the other matches, But then when it came to promos and other segments, I thought the opening interaction with Undisputed Era Cole and Balor was good. Escobar cross vignettes were good. The EO photo shoot thing was good. The LA Knight promo was good. The Dusty Cup presentation was really good. So I had trouble, right? Like, I didn't love it in ring, really, but then I really loved everything else. So I went with a B+ for me this week. Maybe I'm being a bit generous, but I don't think so. It's just because they excelled this week in areas that they sometimes struggle.
It's like... It was bizarre, honestly.
And that excites me, because that's when NXT is great. The in-ring stuff is never a problem. We're always going to get good matches. There's amazing talent there. It's the storyline and the character development, and it seemed like in a bit of an upswing in that, and I'm really excited, because NXT could be just amazing every week as well. I would
Right.
love Wednesday nights to just be like A's all around, right? So this show was really good, I thought.
Yep.
A good week for the Wednesday Night Wars.
Agreed.
All right. Well, that brings us into our next segment where we'll talk about some other wrestling stuff, and that is any other wrestling business.
Yeah.
What do you want us? Do you want me to start? Do you want to start? I only have because
What-
obviously.
what do you got?
So normally here I do cover Impact Wrestling, but as I mentioned, that's on a podcast that I did a solo mission last night. So you can find Impact and No Surrender are both talked about. It's about an hour. I talked about those two things. So I really just have, I think, Ring of Honor for the most part.
Wow. Usually you got like a bunch of stuff.
I know,
think
but I
it's, like-
tried to keep it a bit shorter this week.
Yep.
And put it in a different podcast. So how about I run through Ring of Honor quickly?
All right, and then I'll do my stuff.
Yep. Okay, so Ring of Honor this week opened with Jay Lethal talking with Jonathan Gresham, Tracy Williams, Rhett Titus, Wheeler Yuta, and Fred Yehi about their six-man tag main event that's coming up on this episode. So Lethal talks about Pure Wrestling and suggests that they shake up the matchup. So then he decides it's going to be Lethal, Yuta, and Titus versus Williams. I have Lethal in there twice. So one of those is Gresham and Williams and Yehi. The other wrestlers agree.
Wait,
They start-
What? So they're like switching the teams.
Yeah, so Gresham and Lethal aren't on the same team this time.
Huh.
Is what they're going with, just to switch it up, right? Because this is the honorable. They just want good wrestling, and there's not going to be any dirty tactics or anything because it's a pure division. So you can just sort of mix and match and have good matches, is their theory. So the other wrestlers agree and start to leave, but Lethal asks Williams to stay behind. Lethal suggests that they start the match out, and Williams agrees, but tells Lethal to remember what happened last time, which is where Williams beat him in the pure tournament. I think it was the semifinals. So they shake hands, and the segment ends with Lethal saying, "God, I love professional wrestling," as the opening theme hits for the show. I thought this was a nice change of pace from the usual start with Quinn.
And it's unconventional as well, the
Yeah.
switching.
And I think you can almost see that some of these guys may start to take issue with Lethal's leadership style because he's just basically telling them what they're going to do, right? And I think maybe in the future someone's going to sort of take issue with that, but we'll see. We then get Quinn McKay with her traditional check-in from the studio. She hypes the main event that Lethal just made in the previous segment.
Does she use her hands
Of
to hype
course she
it?
does. She says that last week's 8-man tag event with LFI and Flip Gordon versus the Briscoes, PCO, and Brody King.
That's LFI's Roosh and...
Yes.
Okay, right.
La Facción Ingubernables.
Right.
Was the exact opposite of what the Foundation wants ROH to be. So that's why they're sort of countering with their main event, because that one was just all over the place and chaos, and that's exactly the opposite of Pure. So now they're going to counter that with a Pure main event this week. So McKay then speaks about Maria Kanellis being back in ROH and being at the forefront of the
Yeah,
ROH
Maria
experience.
Kanellis.
McKay then tells us that the fans have a platform to make their voices heard and said the fans have asked for Tony Deppen to return.
Who's that?
He was in the Pure tournament, I believe. Yeah,
Oh, really?
he's like that underdog guy, kind of like a Mikey Whipwreck. You can beat him the whole time and he never gives in.
Huh.
And we're going to get him in the opening match against LSG tonight. So we then get a Tony Deppen sit-down feature, obviously, as we do in ROH. He said some wrestlers didn't think he belonged in the Pure Championship tournament. He mentioned fighting for his newborn child, and he reminds us that he pinned LSG in the 4-corner survival match at Final Battle. I always appreciate the callbacks and reminders, so thank you. Basically, Deppen is the overlooked, undersized underdog who will never give up no matter how much punishment he takes. That's sort of his thing right now. I thought this was a decent promo. He seemed a bit uncomfortable, although that might almost add to that underdog mystique, right, where he's not super comfortable. He's the first ROH talent that I can tell is reading from a teleprompter, for what it's worth. Like, you can see his eyes moving back and forth reading the promo. I was thankful for the reminder that he pinned LSG in the 4-corner match, or I may have sort of felt like this match was a random pairing, but it's not, so that's cool. Then, as always, we get the other competitor gets his chance to speak. So LSG tells us his journey to Final Battle started 15 years earlier when he attended a show in his hometown of Edison, New Jersey, and he said this before in his other ROH promos. He says that he finally has his first chance to wrestle at Final Battle in December, and Deppen walked in and took what was his. LSG was not impressed by Deppen's match with Dragon Lee. LSG said he and Deppen have not wrestled in a singles match and that LSG is now bigger and stronger, and recalled Lethal saying that he's earned his spot in ROH, right? He's like the king of basically the pure style and whatever has told him he belongs. So LSG says he respects what Deppen did on the indies, but wonders if he can hang with the stars of ROH like LSG. I thought this was nice intensity by LSG to end, but the first part was basically a rehash of a promo he's already done in ROH, so it wasn't as exciting as most of their promo segments are. We then obviously get the match with Tony Deppen versus LSG. Riccaboni compares Deppen to Bob Backlund, which I thought was a pretty fair comparison as well. He looks like the boy next door, but then can sort of snap at times, right, if he's pushed too far, which was sort of what Backlund was doing, at least in WWE as well. They spend some time on the floor exchanging forearms early, then head back into the ring. The pace picks up at the end with a bunch of near falls for Deppen through roll-ups and small packages. LSG ends up winning the match with his Hangman's Bomb as he counters a backslide attempt. So this was basically the story of the heel LSG resenting a newcomer who snuck a win over him late last year. But to me, it's not like LSG has done much in ROH himself. But he's the heel, I guess, and they're so.
Really? I thought he was a face, or did he turn
heel? He's working heel here, and he's been in ROH longer than Deppen. It was a pretty good match, but I found it kind of hard to get into because it doesn't feel like either of these men are going to be prominently featured going forward, right? I mean, I could be wrong, but it doesn't seem like these guys are going to get a lot of attention. I see more potential, I guess, in Deppen because he can play that like gritty underdog against so many different people, whereas LSG is fine, but he doesn't really stand out to me in any way at this point. So it was okay, not as good as some matches I've seen in ROH. We then get Jay and Mark Briscoe. They're sitting backstage staring at one another when Quinn McKay sits down and asks if they could talk about this, I guess the issues between the brothers. Jay said there's nothing to talk about. He said he missed the boat. Mark said it's not so much that he missed the boat, it's that he jumped off the boat and swam after EC3. McKay asks if Mark has considered driving the boat back to include his brother. Mark talks about going after the ROH tag titles and tells Jay that he needs to get back in the boat. Mark stands up and says that if Jay is getting on the boat,
like a metaphor?
Yeah, there's because they're like them getting back together. That if Jay is getting on the boat, then he needs to get on. Jay stands up and says, "Well, in that case, let's do it." Mark holds up his arm, and Jay does the same before giving their sort of arm high five bump thing. And they leave. They leave, and Quinn says that they are on their way to fixing things. For me, I think this was supposed to matter more than it did to me. I guess the Briscoes are starting to patch things up, but honestly, I don't even remember learning why they broke up in the first place. Like,
because he went after EC3.
Right, but
I don't think they were gone for that long, right?
And there was no, like, big divide or anything. It was just, like, he's gone, and now the other one's wrestling with PCO, and it wasn't made to be this big deal, but apparently it's supposed to feel that way now. They chose to do different things, so I'm not getting the idea that this is a bitter divide between the two of them. Wasn't a huge fan of the segment, but I guess I would prefer the Briscoes together. I don't really care that much, so... We then get a brief hype video for a match in 2 weeks between Shane Taylor and Rush for the ROH Championship.
Nice world title match.
It briefly featured both of them. Taylor told us he's got next, basically. Rush says ROH is his empire, and that Taylor has messed with the bull and will get the horns.
Are they both heels?
Taylor, I can't quite tell. He talks like a heel and behaves like one, but I'm not convinced that he is actually. You know what I mean? It's like the baby face that does heel type stuff that the fans probably still like, I think, because that's how I feel about him. I thought this was fine, a very short package. It's creating some interest by promoting matches a couple weeks away, I think is a good idea for ROH.
I think AEW were doing that as well, right? Although one of them has Shaq.
Because sometimes you just roll in with ROH and it's like you have no idea and they're telling you.
Yeah, it's like Quinn McKay's telling you.
Yeah.
Like at the beginning.
And I've really liked Shane Taylor a lot since the reboot of this promotion, so I'm kind of looking forward to that match. And Rush, I love their faction. I still haven't seen much of him, so I'm interested. We then do get the main event, which is Yehai, Williams, and Gresham. There's the proper teams, not Lethal on both. And Lethal, Yuta, and Titus.
Yeah, Lethal's going to wrestle himself.
We are told that Yehai and Yuta are not members of the Foundation at this point, but they may be the next great pure wrestlers, so they've been included in this match. Williams and Lethal start with holds and counters to no advantage. Yehai and Titus tag in and take their turn grappling, and we get a sort of this revolving door of wrestlers grappling with each other. And then with about 8 minutes left in the show, the action picks up, and this is sort of me being smart alecky, but some professional wrestling happens, right? Because for me, there can be too much grappling, reversal, counters, and holds. I need some suplexes. I need some like contact and people being knocked down at some point, and I do get that in the second half of this match. The finish of this match comes when Lethal goes for the lethal injection on Yehai, but Gresham shoves Yehai out of the way and takes the move from Lethal. The legal man is Titus, and he drop kicks Yehai, because that's a finisher, I guess, and pins him to win the match.
Hey, I mean, he's got a drop kick, and Myers has
a close.
Yeah,
exactly what I was thinking.
The most brutal clothesline ever.
Right.
Oh my god, it looked terrible at No Surrender, or it was No Surrender, right? Yeah,
yes.
In that tag match, it looked awful.
So the code of honor is adhered to after the match, as the graphics list Jay and Mark Briscoe versus Dragon Lee and Kenny King next week.
Ooh.
And
Wait, is Kenny King in the LFI or no?
I don't think so. I know he was supposed to be in their match last week, but I think it was just because they needed an extra person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was Flip Gordon, right?
Yeah. We're going to get the Mexa squad of Bandito, Ray Oris, and Flamita versus Shane Taylor, Moses, and Khan for the ROH 6-man tag titles for next week. And again, keep promoting these future shows and matchups because it helps, right? Like, you're now interested a little.
I don't think I've really seen Bandito since All In, but I just remember him actually being pretty nice.
You should watch with me next week.
I actually might. Cool. I don't 6-man tag titles, so that's
a quick watch. So the first half of this match really pushed the limits of pure style for me. Watching 6 guys taking turns wrestling the same style on the mat with no real story at all between them was
I even find that in normal matches sometimes it gets to be too much.
It was not compelling for me. The second half of the match picked up for sure, but there was still no story and no stakes, right? It was just like 6 people who like each other deciding to have a match. This division is a cool idea, but it's in dire need of some personality, right? So even though I complain about Flip Gordon, at least a guy who is taking advantage of the pure wrestling rules and really doesn't belong there was kind of interesting, and I think maybe they need it. Right now, it's just a bunch of talented, honorable wrestlers sort of switching matchups, right? And it needs an infusion of some excitement, in my opinion. Overall, the show was just okay for me. The opener was fine, but neither of the competitors seemed poised for a great deal of attention in this company. The main event was a slog for me for the first half and then picked up in the second half. But the fact that this was 6 friends basically who decided to have a match with no stakes and no story left me like nobody to really root for and little reason to care in general. Depp and LSG promos were fine. The Briscoe segment was just okay. Overall, a weaker show than some recently, and I just gave it a B-.
Nice.
Yeah.
Actually not nice, because usually
it's a little higher than that. Like, it wasn't awful.
It's usually in the higher B range.
It's one of those, I'm not sorry I watched it, but I wouldn't recommend it either, you know?
Yeah, like, it was fine to watch, but, like,
I'm not going out of my way to tell you to go see it.
Or, like, you're not going to watch it again if you were to pick one to watch.
Right. Okay, so why don't we move into your new segment?
Yes, so we got Retro Match Review number 1. So, in the spirit of, we have Elimination Chamber coming up tomorrow, I believe. I thought I would review a chamber match, and so when I searched it up, this is when I found that it's not super recent, but vaguely recent.
Yeah, retro, and 2011, baby.
And I haven't seen it before. When I watch those woke culture lists, I've heard about it before, but so yeah, that's what we're doing. So it's from 2011. Elimination Chamber pay-per-view. It's a chamber match for the World Heavyweight title. Edge is defending against Big Show, Rey Mysterio, Drew McIntyre, Kane, and Wade Barrett.
And I had to say, when I saw the list of competitors, I was like, this is a bit of a mixed bag, right?
Yeah.
You've got your 2 super workers in Edge and Mysterio. You've got 2 kind of lumbering big men in Kane and Show. And then you've got 2 kind of young up-and-comers in Barrett and Drew.
Right.
Drew, who looks like 15 years old at this point. He looks so different, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I was interested in I wasn't like super enthusiastic after seeing who was in it, but I was trusting you, so then I watched it. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. I did kind of pick it at random, but
yeah, and my prediction was Big Show will enter last. That was my first note.
So we started the match with Edge and Mysterio. Who else?
Yeah, what a start, honestly.
We get a back and forth until Edge hits a flapjack, and he gets a 2 count off of that. Head scissors takedown by Mysterio. Edge backdrops Mysterio onto the steel ringside flooring, which looked pretty cool.
Yep.
We get a Frankensteiner by Mysterio for a 2 count. Edge repeatedly shoves Mysterio into the chamber wall. Mysterio is sent into Kane's pod by Edge. And then a 2 count back in the ring. A drop toe hold into the corner by Mysterio. And we get our first entry, which is Wade Barrett.
And I thought Mysterio and Edge, like, they have really good chemistry, and this match started out awesome with the perfect choice of them starting, right?
They actually really faced off, I think, in the Chamber match in 2009.
Yeah.
When Edge, I think he lost the WWE title, and then he invaded the World Heavyweight title one.
Yeah.
And
they work really well together.
Yeah, they do.
It's a strong start.
And he attacks Mysterio. Corner shots to Barrett from Edge. Edge pops up Mysterio, and Mysterio hits a seated senton on Barrett, so he kind of like pops him and he goes over Edge's head and does a seated senton on Barrett. I think I remember seeing a similar thing in the 2011 Rumble where like Zack Ryder got popped up and hit the Rough Rider.
Right. At one point around here, I had to like actually remind myself that these crowd noises were real, right? And not be like, man, they're really adding a lot of this in post. Like, oh no, this
That's
is
just
actually
kind of the crowd
real.
Was. Yeah.
Because it almost started to annoy me because they're really into it, right? And you're like, man, dial it back. Oh wait, they're actually people.
Right. And I feel like sometimes like the mat sound tends to sound different. Like I feel like I remember 2009. I remember seeing Big Show take an RKO, and it just sounds like different.
Yep.
I also noticed he sold it on his side. Anyways, so Mysterio slides Mysterio under the ropes. You know that thing he does, and he goes into the chamber wall, which I thought was kind of cool.
Yeah.
A pump handle slam by Barrett on Mysterio for 2. Hammer throw by Barrett. Edge is sent to the outside. He's sent into the wall and back into the ring for 2. Edge low bridges Barrett, and he hits the ringside floor. Mysterio avoids Wasteland and climbs the wall, or as you said, the Wade Slam.
Yeah, I don't know why. I was wondering why he was climbing the wall.
Barrett tries to, I guess, maybe to get away or do a divey thingy.
I guess.
Barrett tries to powerbomb Mysterio, but gets hit with a Hurricane Rana into the ring. Edge cuts off a 619 with a boot.
I made a note of that. It looked really like he's out of nowhere, right? He's not even in the frame, and then all of a sudden, a really nice looking boot to stop that 619.
Kane enters now, and his typical uppercut kind of strikes
to everyone.
Yep. Snapmare, and then a single leg kind of basement drop kick to Barrett by Kane, which was cool, kind of cool.
This is where he backed up against McIntyre's pod, I think. And I'm just like, man, he looks young in there.
Right. Corner shots to Mysterio by Kane, a boot to Edge, sidewalk slam to Barrett, roundhouse kick by Mysterio on Kane for 2. And then there was like a boot by Barrett or Edge for 2, and then a boot by Barrett, and they were like saying, "Oh my God, Kane keeps kicking out."
Oh yeah, everybody kicks him in the head and tries to pin him.
Yeah, the boots didn't look that great. The kick looked kind of cool, but a triple clothesline. I think it was Kane took out Barrett and Edge as they took him out as well, and everybody is down. It was
Edge, Barrett, and Ray. They all took out each other, because I thought it was kind of a unique spot.
Oh right, Kane was down.
Yeah, so they kind of all clothesline each other. So all 3 of them take a clothesline.
Kane clotheslines Edge out of the ring. Kane and Barrett are brawling on the outside. Barrett sent into the chamber wall. Kane hits Mysterio, who falls into the Tree of Woe, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Like so beautifully.
It was really cool.
It didn't look like Ray was trying to get caught up in it, right? He just beautifully executed.
A dropkick to Mysterio by Edge for 2, which
while
is nice.
He's hanging upside down. Looked really good.
Classic.
And all like beautifully timed, like boom, 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 right? There was
Barrett's
no waiting.
Clotheslined out of the ring by Kane after they're back in, which looks cool because like he lands on the steel floor. And our boy Drew McIntyre is now in the match. He darts Mysterio into the pod and dents the pod too.
It was awesome.
Which was kind of interesting. Considering it's like the toughest glass ever. More on that later.
They did actually say
More on that later.
Yeah.
McIntyre and Barrett are double teaming Kane. A double clothesline to Kane. Then McIntyre shoves Barrett through the chamber pod.
Looked awesome.
Effortlessly.
Yep.
Effortlessly. Further reinforcing my point that the pods are maybe
not the strongest plexiglass ever made.
We'll talk about that later. McIntyre, I thought, was looking really good so far. He got a lot of flack for his first run. I think he started out decent, then he kind of stopped having momentum. And
he looked strong in the bits he got here, I thought.
McIntyre then attacks Edge.
Sorry, they did here refer to Kelly being Drew's love interest, and I had completely forgotten that.
I didn't even know that happened. I knew she was involved with Edge somehow in early 2011, and she got fired. So
I made a note of it because I had totally forgotten.
I didn't even know that, so yeah, I was surprised too. Commentary keeps insisting that the glass is used for pods the strongest, despite McIntyre denting it with Mysterio and putting Barrett through it with ease.
Right, and
so
it's like there's such things as bulletproof glass and things that they've got
human
this that
bodies
just fly right through it. Anyways, it still looks good. So
yeah, it's always a cool spot, but just like then don't put the glass over so much.
Right, I agree.
Snap suplex to Edge for 2 by McIntyre. Edge counters the future shock into an execution DDT, so that was kind of cool.
Right.
Edge goes for a spear on McIntyre, but Kane catches him and tries to hit a chokeslam, but Edge gets out. Edge shoves Kane, and then Mysterio sets him up for a 619. Kane ducks and then takes out everybody. Kane backdrops McIntyre to the outside onto Barrett, which is kind of cool. Double boot by Kane and Edge, and everyone was down. That was not cool. And then Big Show enters, so he's the last one in.
As I predicted.
Yeah. Big Show goes on a rampage and gets offense on everyone.
Yeah, he clotheslines and throwing everyone over the ropes, right?
No elimination so far, by the way. Barrett avoids Big Show. Big Show catches him, however, and shoves Barrett through the tough glass pod with one hand.
By the neck, yeah.
Right, once again, shoved with ease. Yes, this is the Big Show, but still. It's like, honestly. Overhand chops to Barrett. Those classic chops that I think messed up Kofi's chest, I've heard. KO punch to Barrett for the elimination. So our first elimination is Big Show takes out Wade Barrett.
And that reminded me of your adorable brother when he was a little kid calling it the punch.
Oh, yeah.
Remember? Because he didn't understand it. Anyways, yes, first elimination.
So Show eliminates Wade Barrett. A top rope clothesline to Big Show from Kane. I find sometimes that move looks cool and then sometimes it just looks awful.
Yeah, it's not, I don't know.
It's a hit or miss, honestly.
To me, I don't know how much more force it would give than just running at the guy, you know what I mean? But anyways, it's cool to see a huge man come off the top.
Elbow drop by Edge to Big Show from the top.
Nicely
2
timed.
count as Big Show powers out. Yeah, it was good timing as well. Future Shock DDT for 2. Seated senton from the top of the pod from Mysterio to Big Show for 2, and he powers out again. Thought that he would have caught it, but I mean it was from pretty high.
Yep.
A boot to Kane, or boot by Kane to Show. 619 to Big Show. A spear to Big Show, and then Kane takes out Edge and Mysterio for some reason, and then a chokeslam to Big Show for the elimination, and Kane takes out Big Show.
I like the decision to give Big Show very little time in this, right? Like, let him in.
He is slow and big, but he did look decent at least.
But that's what I mean, right? You limit.
Right.
He looked good. Now get him out of there.
Yeah, true.
Yep, I think it was smart, and he didn't look weak because he took triple finishers basically. He took 3 finishers from 3 different people to put him out. So I thought that was a smart decision.
Right. A top rope move by McIntyre is caught by Kane, and then he hits a choke slam, which eliminates Drew McIntyre. So Kane has eliminated McIntyre now. Kane's on a bit of a streak here.
Yep.
Mysterio and Edge counter a double choke slam, but are taken out. A tilt-a-whirl DDT for 2 count by Mysterio. A springboard leg drop for 2 by Mysterio on Kane. Springboard move is caught by Kane. Mysterio counters a chokeslam into a Hurricanrana, sets him up for 619, which connects. Kane catches a Hurricanrana, however, and as Mysterio attempts a Hurricanrana again, so he's hanging down, Edge spears both and pins Kane, which is kind of cool because Mysterio's upside down.
It looked
but
cool.
He spears both, so it was cool.
And I like that he spears both, but chooses to eliminate Kane because Kane's obviously the bigger threat in theory.
And Mysterio has been in the whole match with him, right? So.
And again, Edge is the ultimate opportunist, so this is his character. Fits in really well done.
So Kane has been eliminated now by Edge. And Edge and Kane were actually feuding in late 2010. Remember, Edge weirdly kidnapped Paul Bearer despite him being the face.
Right.
And also in early 2011, he had a World Heavyweight title last man standing match. I think that was either a defense or when he beat Kane for the belt. I don't know, but that's how Edge became champion. He beat Kane, so... There is a little history between them. Then Kane attacks Edge, chokeslam to Mysterio, and chokeslam to Edge.
Yeah, before he leaves.
Right. So then when they're back up, Mysterio counters spear into a roll-up for 2. Springboard crossbody by Mysterio, but Edge rolls through and tries to pin him for a 2 count. Wheelbarrow bulldog by Mysterio for a 2 count. Edge counters a dive into a sit-out powerbomb for 2, which is pretty cool. Mysterio counters a powerbomb and sets Edge up for the 619. Edge catches the 619 and gets Ray into a sharpshooter kind of lion tamer submission.
Yeah, I had trouble saying what it was either. It was not quite a cloverleaf, not quite a lion tamer, but a submission nonetheless.
Yeah, it was interesting. And Mysterio counters into a roll up for 2 a little bit after. Mysterio avoids a spear but is caught with another one anyways, but he kicks out. A 619 by Mysterio and a springboard splash for a 2 count. Another 619 by Mysterio, but then Edge catches the dive this time with a speed for the win. I wrote speed. I meant to say spear.
Yeah, spear coming off the ropes, right?
Yeah. It was really cool. Mid-air spears are always sick.
Looked pretty nasty.
And Edge retains the World Heavyweight Championship. Thoughts?
I said, wow. Basically, it felt like Ray and Edge had a really
mini
strong
match.
5-minute
Yeah.
match. And then there was a chamber match. And then they had a really awesome 10-minute match after that, right?
Right.
A really entertaining match. Over-delivered for me based on my thoughts once I saw the lineup, right? This is a 33-minute match, and it flew by.
Yeah, like, I was surprised when I saw it was like half an hour. I was like, what? And it did take me a little long to watch it because obviously I was taking notes, but it was a good match.
It flew by, and I thought this was, I said to you, like, this is a really strong chamber match with nothing that was really ultra mega dangerous or death defying or anything, right?
It's like it's
just
weird.
There were some cool spots.
But like nothing like death defying or like groundbreaking.
No. Ray and Edge are clearly the MVPs. Everybody looked good. Big Show barely involved, which was smart, but he looked good in the time he got. Drew, I thought, had a couple nice spots, putting people through pods for the amount of time he got. Barrett, I think, was probably the least noticeable, but he didn't look bad either. So I thought this was a really strong chamber match, and it hopefully sort of makes me look forward a bit more to tomorrow, because maybe there'll be a good one there. It's a nice reminder that, yes, these matches can be quite well done. What did you think?
It was a really good match. Drew McIntyre had a really good showing, I thought, when he entered, and this is one of his better performances, I think, from his first WWE run that catches a lot of flack these days. If you compare it to now. Commentary is really annoying about the chamber pod glass strength, even though it got broken at least 3 times easily. So that was kind of annoying. But Kane and Big Show both had some decent big man rampages, and the final stretch between Edge and Mysterio was the highlight.
It was awesome.
But you come to expect stuff like that from those guys. I would say one of the best PG era chamber matches I've seen.
Oh, maybe that's why there was nothing crazy and violent.
It is PG era, but it still was a really good chamber match. I'll give it a B+, almost an A-. Like,
I
really
would give
stuff.
it an A- if we're grading it right now. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
I'll give it an A-.
And I had no idea what to expect, right? And again, I saw the lineup and I'm like, really? This is where we're going?
Honestly, even if I can't find anything else, I might pick another chamber match next week.
It was quite good. Yeah.
It was good.
That was a fun segment, buddy. I like that.
And then, do you have anything else?
No, but we need to just do our predictions, right?
Yep. Elimination Chamber 2021 preview and predictions.
This will be interesting because I don't even know what the matches are, so this is coming fresh out of my dome. So go for it.
I went in order of what I found on the thing.
Yep.
So our first match is Bobby Lashley versus Matt Riddle versus Keith Lee for the United States Championship. That sounds awesome.
Wow. I will say, I'll say Riddle.
Nice.
I think it'll be one of those get the belt off Lashley, even though I don't want it to, without him being pinned, maybe?
I also picked Matt Riddle.
Okay.
I think Lashley hasn't done enough as champ in the time he's been given, and despite him being booked better than previous times, WWE still haven't really booked him as the powerhouse monster he should be, from what I've seen. Obviously, we don't watch it a ton, but, like, I'm still keeping in touch, right? So
yeah.
I just feel like he should be booked better. I think he's given enough time. I think he either needs to move on or, like, maybe they need to rebuild, I think. Riddle would be a great mid-card champ, in my opinion. I think it would definitely make his main roster run better.
Yeah.
Keith Lee would be a good choice, too. Honestly, I would be fine with him as well. But I think Matt Riddle would be better for now. I think he would be better. I think he could have some great matches, maybe do an open challenge. And Riddle versus Lee at Mania, maybe for the title, would be really cool as well.
Honestly... I know I love Lashley with belts and things, but I hope it comes off of him because it would mean either Lee...
It's kind of like Escobar. You just need to kind of get him out of this, you know?
It would mean either Lee or Riddle's getting some more attention. And then honestly, why not build Lashley up to face McIntyre at some point? I think that's reasonable. Because, like,
I don't think Sheamus is great, but I also... Speaking of that, we got the WWE Championship Elimination Chamber match. Drew McIntyre versus Sheamus versus AJ Styles versus Jeff Hardy versus Randy Orton versus Kofi Kingston.
McIntyre retains.
All right.
Fairly confident.
Yeah.
Because I don't even understand why some of those people are in there. What have they done lately? What has Jeff Hardy done lately?
He's a former WWE champion.
There's lots of former champions that aren't in there. Why did they pick him?
I don't know. That's an excellent question.
Right? Because he has not been winning lately, I don't think. But anyways.
Face paint.
Yeah, who are you taking?
I also picked McIntyre. Yeah. Nobody's really been built up to be believable in beating him from what I've seen. Sheamus included.
Agree.
Maybe that's why they had to draft in Goldberg, despite that being awful as well. My ideal choice to win, who I want to win, is AJ Styles, because he's great in ring and a good heel, and almost could help him have another monster title run. You know what I mean? I think he had a decent long run in 2018, right?
Yeah.
But, like, I think this time it could be a good long run. You know what I mean? I think he could be that obnoxious heel who's like, I'm the best wrestler, I got the belt, and he could have almost backing him up. You know what I mean?
He's
I think
only other one I would even consider probably
right.
out of that
I don't
bunch.
think he's gonna win, but I want him to win. And if he doesn't win here, I would kind of rather him beat Drew at Mania in a one-on-one match, and that sounds way better than Sheamus.
Right.
But yeah, so pick McIntyre, but I would like Styles to win. I
Fair
think
enough.
that'd be great. Universal Championship number 1 contenders Elimination Chamber match. Winner will face Roman Reigns immediately after.
Right.
Cesaro versus Kevin Owens versus Daniel Bryan versus Jey Uso versus King Corbin versus Sami Zayn.
I didn't even know who was in that one. I will say, who's going to get killed by Reigns right after? Daniel Bryan.
All right.
Because he seems to be in this phase of his career where he's
been losing a lot
building
lately.
people and putting people over, right? So
Yeah.
he could gain some nice sympathy. Like Roman would get some really nice heel heat just beating the hell out of Daniel Bryan, I think.
Interesting.
So I'll take him.
So I picked Cesaro. I think the only 2 possible winners are Bryan and Owens, aside from Cesaro. But apparently Bryan's been losing a lot lately, so him winning seems just kind of unlikely. And Owens winning would just be kind of dumb, because I think the feud has been done to death now.
Yeah.
Right? My fantasy booking would be Cesaro winning. And he maybe comes in later in the chamber so that he's not like completely worn out, so that he could maybe have a decent mini match with Reigns and does the quote unquote pushing him to the limit, right?
Yeah.
And just when it seems like he's about to win, Seth Rollins costs him the match, as we know they're feuding.
Mm-hmm.
But my fantasy goes way past this. This is what I was mentioning to you. So then Rollins joins up with Reigns, right? He kind of helps them, and they kind of run SmackDown for most of the year, similar to Banks and Bayley last year.
Right.
Then after a while, Reigns will maybe turn on Rollins, maybe get sick of him, or like messed up interference, or something like that. I don't know. But then since Reigns is a mega heel, Seth could be the babyface again, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you could build to an epic showdown at like one of the major pay-per-views. And if it were to be Mania, you could have like Reigns beat the hell out of Rollins when he turns him, like put him through the table, beat the hell of him with a chair or something, you know?
Yep.
And put him on the shelf for a bit. Then he returns, wins the 2022 Royal Rumble. Like it's been, I think, what would it be? Would it be 3 years since he won the last Rumble then, right?
Sure.
Which I think would be a decent amount of time for him to get another win. And then we get what we should have gotten this year.
Right.
So
I think the problem with your Cesaro pick is I just see Vince McMahon sitting there because everybody's rooting for Cesaro right now and thinks he's getting, and then Vince going, ha ha, whatever the fans want, right? He's like, nope, I'll tell you what you want.
I don't think it even matters if Vince doesn't like, because like he could win, he's still gonna lose to Reigns, so like it honestly doesn't even matter who
I
wins.
honestly don't think Vince will give fans the satisfaction, because that seems to be the outcry right now, is it's finally Cesaro's time and he's gonna get a shot, and Vince is gonna go, no, he's not, idiots.
I think it's maybe even because like also I've heard, because remember he was supposed to be the star of the gauntlet match.
Yeah.
And then
no, because Vince resents the crowd telling him what they like, right?
Yeah.
Vince will decide what you like, man. He's not going to let you choose. He'll
honestly,
tell you what you like.
I don't really care who wins at the end of the day. This is just me fantasy booking, because obviously no one's going to beat Reigns right now, and especially not if they're like not even at 100%.
Right.
Then we got a match that was added on SmackDown
I don't know.
last
What
night.
is it?
Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax versus, any guesses?
No, because I don't even know who our teams right now.
Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair.
Ooh,
Yeah.
really?
Mm-hmm.
I will say champs retain, right? Because they've got a thing going on NXT. Doesn't that seem kind of obvious?
I also wrote Jackson Baszler, and hold on, I'm just typing.
Because I believe, wouldn't that would kind of kill the NXT storyline, right? If they end up losing the title. So I think that's
there's that,
pretty much
and then
a
this
lock.
is just WWE putting 2 single stars together when one is already a singles champ.
Yeah,
as much as I like both Belair and Banks, they shouldn't win the titles. I'm pretty sure they're gonna face off at Mania, so maybe Sasha turns on Bianca.
That is probably, I think that's what you're looking at.
But Jackson Baszler have to retain. And also, notice how neither of the men's tag titles are on the show.
Right. Interesting. They love tag teams there, right?
Yeah, and I almost forgot who the Raw tag champs were, despite watching Raw earlier this week.
Who is it? New Day?
Hurt Business.
Oh, right.
I almost thought it was the New Day, too.
I don't know.
But that's it. We only got one. We only got 1, 2, 3, 4 matches.
So hopefully it's a great pay-per-view and we want to review it. We may.
For sure going to be a couple random matches, I guarantee.
Probably.
Because there's only 4 matches. When has that ever happened?
Yeah. Well, the
right?
chamber matches are long, right?
Yeah,
so, but they'll throw something.
They also like to I'm sure we'll get Big E versus somebody.
We will. All right. Well, looks like we're ready to transition into our final segment because I don't have anything else for.
Yeah.
All right. So that will be where Jack takes a few minutes to talk about the world of wrestling figures in Figuring It Out with Jack.
All right. So, I originally didn't really have much, but so first we got AEW Unrivaled 5 has been officially revealed after, we got some render images and then now it's on pre-order on Ringside Collectibles. We got Hangman Adam Page, my other boy John Moxley. We got SCU and Kazarian and Scorpio Sky. I'm really hoping they come with the tagged belts because that would be awesome. And then we also got Jungle Boy and Lucha frickin' Saurus. I am so happy for that. Luchasaurus is gonna have a great figure. The mask, the tattoo detail, his attire is just great in general. And the chase and rare figures we know are going to be Hangman and John Moxley, so that's pretty cool. Now John Moxley will have 4 figures. And we've only had render images so far, in black and white, so don't know much. I think Hangman's gonna be coming with that beer cup. But I'm really hoping that SCU come with the tag belts because I think they look great and it would be a perfect way to introduce those belts. But this looks like a really good series. We got 2 of my favorites in Mox and Page and Luchasaurus. Jungle Boy will be cool too, so great series here. And then next we got a Storm Collectibles Ringside exclusive coming soon. Another Jushin Liger one. We've had, I think, the red and white. We have the blue, red, and silver, I think it is. And then we've also got the black and gold Jushin Liger. So we've had a few already, quite a bit. And so this one is going to be based on his 1989 debut attire, which is different because it doesn't look like what you would think he looks like. Because, he's got the mask with the horns and whatnot. But this one's I think I showed you the picture of what it looks like, right? Not the figure, but the thing. Yeah. It looks kind of like a fencing mask almost, but this is retro Liger. So it does not look what he looks like now, but I do kind of want a Liger figure low key, but just because I feel like he'd be interesting to have.
I think you'd take any figure you don't have. Right?
Yeah,
basically.
But I'd probably, if I were to get one, I'd rather get the other one. But this one looks like, I don't know, I'd have to see the figure because it is a little interesting and it'd probably be easier to use him without all the horns and whatnot on his mask. But it is interesting that they're doing this.
Cool.
I do like it because it's at least different from the other one.
It is. Super different.
And then we got an Andre the Giant Super 7 Ultimate figure. Is now available for pre-order on Ringside Collectibles, just kind of out of the blue. Photos have been shown on social media for a bit. I think I've seen them somewhere. I don't remember. But you won't be able to find it in pre-orders, though, if you go to the pre-order section. What you gotta do if you really want to find this is click on either the Major Podcast or Good Brothers figures in the pre-order section, and then if you scroll down, because it just directs you to all the Super 7 stuff, you'll find Andre there. I literally found this by accident when I was just looking at the Brian Myers one, and then I went back and scrolled down.
Nice.
So it comes with 3 interchangeable heads. None of them are that good. They all look just weird. I find the head scans in this company's figures all just look kind of interesting,
not good. Interesting. Is what
they
I'm
just look
getting
kind of
from this.
Animated, and some of them look animated, but they just look weird. A lot of them. Some of them look animated, and they just look like the True FX scans they've got in WWE figures now. They always look great, and these ones just look weird, honestly.
Yeah.
He's got 2 different vests, one yellow and one brown. He seems to be based on the pre-WWE attire with the trunks and the big afro.
Yeah.
This baby face look.
Mm-hmm.
And he looks similar to his Flashback Ringside exclusive Elite a while back. Remember the one we used to see in stores?
Yes.
Similar to that, except with a worse head scan somehow. He also has interchangeable hands and a beer can. So it looks okay if you really want an Andre. I don't know, if you like the Super 7 figures, then...
You just got an Andre.
But I did, yes. I got the WrestleMania Celebration basic. With the ring cart.
In the ring that they brought down to the... Yeah.
And I also got a Seth Rollins and a Target exclusive Eddie Guerrero, because that's at Toys R Us now.
Yep. Cool.
Yeah.
Is that it, bud?
Yep.
Very nice. Well, I'm definitely glad I did a sort of bonus pod last night because we still are the same length, and that would have added another hour.
Although I do like to kind of hear about Impact, because then when it's bad, it's kind of
you can go and listen to it.
Yeah, that's
right?
true.
It was pretty good this week, actually. So, yeah, so feel free to check those out, right? Check out our other podcasts from this week, or any of our podcasts would be great.
We will probably review Elimination Chamber, actually, because we seem to be doing good with the pay-per-view.
Yeah, people seem to like pay-per-view reviews, so we may try and do one.
Probably do if we have free time, just and see how it goes. Because if it goes well, then I guess we'll keep doing it.
Yep. Well, I guess it's time to sign off. So as always, thanks to everybody for giving us any of their time throughout the week to listen to some wrestling talk. We really appreciate it. Again, feel free to reach out to us if you'd like any information or criticism or anything, suggestions, whatever you'd like.
Or match suggestions for the review.
Yep. And I hope that you guys have a great week. And until we see you back here at the same time, same place next week, take care, everybody.